Am I doing the intro? Are you doing the intro? What are we doing?
You can do the intro today, but you got to do it to like a
No, here we
song.
go.
You
A
want to do it? Do you want to
song?
do it? Yeah. Do you want to do it to like a rock song, or you want to do it to like a little like happy club kind of house song?
Well, how am I gonna hear the song?
You're not.
Well, then how the am I supposed to do it to the song?
When I cue it, the song's just gonna be playing on go. When I say go, like start hitting the intro, dude. You gotta have some swagger to it, Ben.
I'll try my best.
All right, dude. I'm proud
All
of you,
right,
man. All right,
just
you
give me a
ready?
countdown. I go.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
What's up, guys? Ben here, and welcome to another episode of Scrap Time. The vibes are high. We got 2 weeks in the bag. Unfortunately, we got a 3-week break, but we'll talk about that in a second. We have finally started to get some results coming in the league. Some teams are doing well. Some teams, we'll talk about it. They might be in some real trouble. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Mr. Christopher, aka Mr. Christopher. I was going to say Christopher James Crowder. I don't know.
Oh my
But you
god,
guys know him
dude.
as Crowder. He's the coach. He's also a professional player that's won a world championship as a coach. I have not. That's what Chris has got up on me. Chris, how are you doing on this lovely Monday? I know you're probably taking today off after sort of
No, I've just
big,
decided I'm
really
not
kind of
taking
run
a day
in.
off. I think I'm gonna stream
Oh, we're
after
back on the
this.
bullshit. I
Yeah,
love it.
dude. I was just saying how I feel really burnt out, and now I'm just gonna, I'm gonna continuously just burn out. But we'll stream after this. But regardless, W intro, Ben. And I think the music and the way, the pace of your speaking right there was perfect, dude. So that made me happy.
Well, I couldn't hear the song at all. I was just kind of winging it. So,
The people that are watching don't know that. So,
okay, okay. I think it was
we're
some of the
feeling
magic.
good. Obviously, the team played well this weekend. We'll get into that soon, but I'm happy. I'm excited to do the scrap time. I'm honestly having a lot of fun recording these shows. I was looking forward to today. So today should be a fun one. I'm excited. I feel good, and I'm ready to talk about some Call of Duty, baby.
All right, well, let's get into it. So, um, where do we start today? Well, let's start with this sort of general kind of topic. What do we think about? So right now we had 2 weeks of matches.
Mhm.
Um, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're heading into a week running into like Christmas. So okay, understand why we're taking that off. A week running into New Year's. Okay, understand why we're taking that off. But I don't understand why it can't be like, you know what I mean, after New Year's, like
Get right
that
to it.
first weekend. Yeah, why do we need another? Do you think like 3 weeks is too long and we're not gonna play until like the middle of January and now it's 2 weeks and then we're going straight to Boston?
Uh, I mean, I'm assuming like probably the timing of the event might have had something to do with it, like in the sense like instead of taking like a full week off before the event's over, like you know what I mean, type of thing or something. But I don't know. I mean, the 3-week break definitely sucks because even just from the coaching side of stuff, just watching scrims, it's fun. It's good practice. Obviously, you want to always get better, but at the same time, like watching especially after getting a taste of what the matches are and just the atmosphere of match days and stuff, even if it's just online matches, is always fun. So 3 weeks is a little too long. I'd prefer to get right back into it. I think every player in the league would probably agree. But at the same time, being able to have that break and kind of relearn the spawns is also nice because a lot of the spawns did definitely change, right? So if that's the case, we'll see how much they changed and all that, and we'll kind of figure it out. But to give some time for the teams to just prepare more again and get back into the swing of things could be nice too.
Yeah, I would say, I kind of see that maybe it was like, okay, well, do we want a week in between the matches in Boston, or would we rather have the matches on Sunday and everybody flies to Boston like on Tuesday? We do it in the weekend after. I just think what's going to happen is like with this situation is we're all going to get back from New Year's, and that first weekend we're going to be like, wow, there is nothing going on. It's going to kind of suck all the momentum early out of the league, and it may affect viewership. So I think it's not a wise strategy, but
Yeah, it is what it
it
is.
is as it is at this
Yeah,
point.
nothing we can do.
So let's get into it.
Hmm.
Before we get into your team, I wanted to give two top line stats that I think will set the tone for the show. There
Let's do
was
it.
after week one, we had some really fun game five series, some blowouts, but some interesting series. I'm gonna be honest, legit. I think every series this weekend was boring. Like even the upsets, unquote, were boring series. The winning teams lost 4 maps in total across their wins. They're like 10 matches. In the top 4 right now, so New York, Optic, Toronto, and FaZe are combined 11-1 against teams that are not the ones I listed. So I'm not counting like this. They've played 13 series in total. I'm not counting the Optic versus New York because obviously it's top 4 versus top 4 balance. But everybody else, they're pretty much taking care of business against teams that are not in that spot. The only one is the Boston over Toronto upset, which we'll get to in
Mhm.
the middle of the show. So, like, Chris, is that what you did you expect coming into the season that with red dots, with these maps, and maybe once you started playing it, some of these hills are harder to break than last year, that maybe the skill gap might shine, or did you not think maybe it's to this extent? Like, what are your thoughts on that stats?
Uh, I mean, it's still early. We were talking about it a little bit before the episode. It's still early in the year, and the spawns definitely just changed. So now it could play much differently. But at the end of the day, when there is 150 health, the time to kill is a little bit slower, and there's more movement. You're definitely going to be able to see skill gaps here and there. But I think it's also just a lot of the times teams get ahead, and then when they stay ahead in the beginning of the year, like they're able to kind of solidify themselves away from other teams. But still, I don't know. I don't really think it's a skill some huge skill gap that you're going to see for the rest of the year as of now. We just kind of
Yeah.
have to wait and see. And I think these new spawns are going to change some of the maps too. So it's kind of hard to tell. I just think like some teams got ahead pretty early. They obviously got a good start. They had the momentum, the confidence, and they kind of ran with it. But at the same time, like there were still some close matches and stuff. Like our match with Boston had some close maps. Like even like our Seattle match, like we played it well and we did really good. But like there's stuff that you can always work on. So there's going to be a bigger skill gap, but I think it's just also early season stuff too, to be honest. And also, I know you just said the Boston Toronto thing, but there's still rooms for like things like that too. So I don't know. I think it's early game cheese for now. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. There's some listen, I think it was to be expected that there might be less parity. I think obviously red dots being in has a huge effect on the game. Early game, I agree. I've had a number of conversation with players. It's like I feel like the knowledge gap as far as fully understanding the maps and the modes right now is just not at the level it was last year. Because last year you just kind of accepted with no red dots and the way the maps were laid out, there is some level of randomness. Like you can kind of master some 50/50s,
You think
but
it's
like it
red
just
dots
comes.
though? I feel like you
I think it's a combination of a couple things. I think red dots
mhm.
is one. I think in Pat Price, aka X, made a really good point on the show a couple weeks ago of like, these maps were designed for a game a long time ago that had a lot more nades, no trophies, AR play dominance. So like teams that are able to effectively use subs to overcome that gap, be able to use that map geography and lock down are being very effective. A bunch of these hills are very small in hardpoint. So rotating early, holding down power positions and some like obvious crosses are going to make breaking hills very difficult. So I think once you put that all together, and the top teams are always going to be a little bit more disciplined, and the bottom teams are always going to be kind of pacing's off, going to make mistakes. That's why I think you're seeing some lopsided results in some of these respawns.
Yeah. I
Like, do you
mean,
kind of agree with that?
yeah, I mean, these maps obviously weren't designed for hardpoint. That's very true. But I think in general, teams with like the sub players on teams are really important. Yeah, and that's always going to be something where like if you have really good sub players that are able to apply pressure all over the map, it's going to make the map very hard to play against, and it's going to make it easy for that team. Obviously, if they're frying and firing on all cylinders, it's going to make it very easy for them too. So it's definitely a little bit of both. I think the 150 health, the movement, and all that stuff all kind of collectively come into it, but it's still really hard to say something as solidifying as like, yeah, like this is just a skill gap. This is like, it's still early. I still think there are some
Yeah.
close maps, and even like with us, like I can speak for us, like there's a lot of stuff that we still need to work on, even with us winning our matches. Like it's not like we won those and like, we're perfect. And I think every team would probably say the same. Like there's always going to be things you can work on and stuff to keep getting better. So I think right now
Yep.
it's just like, it's a small sample size. We'll see how it kind of keeps playing out, especially after like major one on LAN, on stage, where all that is too. I'm very curious to see how this plays on LAN. I have to wait and see. But yeah, the red dots are just nice. The reason why I asked about the red dots is because I don't think it's like, like a skill gap game changing type of thing as much as it's just like nice for everyone to actually play a game that makes sense and stuff. And you're not taking those like weird, odd, like, I don't know. Last year was just kind of hell to
Takes
play that
takes a
way.
lot of like the
Yeah.
randomness
It
out
makes a lot
with
of it
red
creates a lot of
dots spot
randomness in
spawn.
that sense. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with all that stuff, but I still think it's just
It's
early.
still
I wouldn't be like super
Yes.
super critical on some of the teams, but at the same time, you know, you have to make sure you don't have a really bad start too, right? So
Yeah, and again, you've talked about the new patch. It's changed a lot of a number of like, you
yeah,
guys have probably been watching Subbase all week, like, that map plays fairly
totally
differently
differently.
now in the new
Yeah.
patch. Terminal might actually be the worst map of all time now on this new patch with the spawns. So, excited to see what the pros can do with 3 weeks of practice or whatever under the belt with this. But let's move on and let's start
Mhm.
talking about individual teams.
Let's get into it.
Just as always, chat, like, we're going to try and cover all 12 teams. We may not give them all full oxygen, so sorry if your team comes up and we give it a 2-minute chat. It's just really difficult for us to, give the full breakdown to everybody. But as always, we start with your team, Chris. You guys only had one series this weekend. It was on Saturday afternoon against the surging Seattle Surge. See what I did there? Uh, it was a fun series. You guys took the first map, kind of controlled Karachi pretty much start to finish. They took an interesting high-res S&D on you guys. I know it's the first time you're playing the map.
Mhm.
The control, I think you guys also kind of dominated on Karachi. Outslayed them bad on that map. And then the last map was interesting. I think you guys had a decent control of invasion going into the second rotation.
Mhm.
Seattle, and we'll talk about it more because I think we're going to watch this VOD when we talk about Seattle. They had a really pretty good P4 hold, and then they had an opportunity to really kind of tie the game up or take the lead on a P5, and they completely not early just kind of had a terrible setup and then kind of tried to collapse inwards and never got any of the kills. And so you guys were able to close that out with some good individual plays. What was your biggest takeaway from that game? And what is the biggest thing that your team needs to work on other than learning the new patch over the next 3 weeks?
I mean, if BZ just doesn't fall off of that staircase, that game doesn't even go to P5 and it was just over.
Are you saying on P4?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I think, you know, he did fall off the staircase and it did go to P5 and it definitely got scary. I think the fight between Arcides and Draza in the back staircase was massive.
Yeah.
I think Draza getting that kill was like everything, to be honest. That was like a huge kill that went down, a very clutch kill for us that obviously saved us and then the way we like approached everything after. But I mean, I like the way we played that invasion for the most part. It really sucks that as a BZ jumped off the staircase to get the trade, I'm pretty sure it was Arcides ran in and cut into the hill and just like hid in there. And then like we could
Yeah.
have just never like finished that
You
last
want to
kill off.
pull the VOD up? I linked
Yeah,
it
I
in the
can.
if you
What?
pull it up because I have it queued at the beginning of that hill, the P4, and then we can talk about the P4 and the P5
Okay.
because
Perfect.
you make a good point that like though that map, it's so funny in COD. There's like so many interactions on a map, but to your point, like basically two major moments where the difference between you guys winning by like 100 or Seattle making this crazy comeback and maybe winning on a P5 or a P1.
Yeah, so like if you play it out here, I'll put the volume a little bit low, just to keep it lower. Like right here, like look, we have scrap time. This is right after I'm pretty sure Celium and Simp 2v4'd them. They got a 4 dead.
Oh, they had the worst.
Yeah.
Bro, Seattle's bathroom setup was the worst shit I've
No,
ever
yeah.
seen.
So
Like
they 2v4'd them here, and then like this is like hardpoint 101. So I can talk
yeah,
about this here, but like obviously if you get the scrap time and you're still staying ahead of rotation, which Abizi was, right here at this very moment, this looks very good for us for the most part. Like we have scrap time. They have 150. We have 190. We can win it here. If we don't lose these spawns, we can just win it in the next one. So like this is looking like a really commanding game. BZ takes the time to rotate for us, stays ahead. Everyone's, this is good Call of Duty. It was just like this next moment that happens. It's just like, we get the first blood. So now again, 3v3 or 3v2. This guy's obviously trying to get in here. It's just playing this fight. Him jumping off the staircase was a little bit rogue. And then him doing that, Arcides is able to cut up into this hill and now stay alive. And then if you pause it, like this is just where it gets weird because we never end up getting Arcides because of this. And we have the kills. We have everything that we need. Number 3 is obviously the killing him off the cross. Like again, we're ahead of it. It's just Arcides makes a pretty big play from Tyler jumping off. They cut us off, and like what could have just been a 40-second hold for us now just goes away. So as something as like staying ahead on rotation, playing COD, like the big picture Call of Duty right there, we played it well. The little things in the moment, we didn't do well, and so they did a very good job of like that. So like that was like probably the biggest mistake of this map. And things like that are going to happen. Obviously, you want to clean them up and play them better next time in the moment. But, I mean, I wasn't really, like, super upset, like, from a coaching POV. Because, like, we did most of the stuff that we needed to put ourselves into spots to win. And then executing from there, it just got a little rocky. But not the end of the world.
is that like is that like you think is sort of the biggest thing you need to work on with your team, like just playing a full 12 minutes of solid COD, or is there other
Yeah,
stuff
I
you guys
mean,
are focusing on?
it's everything at the end of the day. Like, we you want to play a full 12 minutes or 10 minutes of like solid COD. And that's what that was. Again, like there is going to be times where you do not execute on the gunfight, you don't win the gunfight, or you just misplay that certain gunfight. But when you have the best players in the world, like if you can set yourself up to have those advantageous positions like over and over and over again to stay ahead and control the game, like that's going to fall into your favor more than it's not. And then you're going to win more maps than you obviously lose. So I think we did a good job in that sense. And then like a few little things just went wrong. And then of course when that happens, the other team usually capitalizes in a pro setting, and they just kind of did that. So I wasn't super upset with them. I like the way we played this for the most part. So I was happy. It was just it was tough when I in the moment when I was watching and he jumped off that staircase. I was like, no, where are you going? I was like, where are you
Going a
going?
little
Yeah,
too rogue.
yeah, went a little rogue,
But
but
I
it
mean,
happens.
we'll talk about in a sec. I mean, I think then you guys do make a pretty good kind of you just all hit fucking middle on the P5 rotation, and then to your point, I think Alec kind of maybe gets a little bit too aggressive against Raz in the back stairs. After we'll watch it back. We talk about Seattle, but that ended up
Yeah,
being a big play.
yeah. I don't think he got too aggressive. To be honest with you, I mean, he had draws a one shot. He just needed to finish that kill, and he didn't. To be honest, like that happens. Like I don't think he really misplayed it. He might have got bad timing on the tactical sprint of it or
Yeah,
something,
he did.
but yeah.
100% got bad time on
But
attack
like he,
sprint.
but like he had him one shot. Like you kind of have to hunt them down there for sure. But
You can't let the guys lurk. So I think overall for your team, you guys have only played 3 matches before the break. Some teams played 3, some teams played 4. You guys won all 3. I think across all game modes, you lost at least one map in across all game modes, but you have a winning percentage in all of them. And then coming up, you guys, I'm gonna be honest, Chris, you don't have to say anything about this, but I think you guys have the fucking easiest schedule, like coming back in January from my perspective. LAG, Vegas, Carolina, and then playing Optics. So I think listen, you don't gotta react to that. I'm not forcing you if you don't want to say anything, but from my perspective, I think you guys will go to 6 wins and then
um,
we'll see what happens against Optic.
yeah, I mean, I don't ever. I mean, I've been like this since you've known me, even like as a player. I don't think
Yeah.
any schedule is ever easy because at the end of the day, no matter how much a team is struggling or how ever bad they look, like you can still play a close game. They're still professionals at the end of it, right? And if you show up and you're not on top of your game or you take someone lightly, like you always lose. So I'm a very I'm not a very big believer in like, oh, this is an easy day today. Because if that's your attitude, then like you deserve to lose. You should be taking everyone serious. So I think that comment's kind of like BS from like my perspective, but I mean I get it from where people are coming from, but we never show up and
Yeah.
just think like, hey, like today's gonna be a walk in the park. 'Cause that's really dumb. I hate that attitude.
That's how you get upset because you just don't take people serious.
It's just not a winning
Uh,
mentality. Like you
yeah,
can you can be confident, and then there's being stupid.
I agree. But I mean, at least from my perspective, you guys are favoring all those matches. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Seattle. I think the way I'm gonna start is we're gonna talk about a couple of teams that I think were the big talking points, and we'll get to everybody else. Seattle is one they were coming into this week, off some really good victories in week 1 and against Steves in Boston. And we're like, oh well, Seattle Surge might be for real. But then we were looking like, okay, well, they gotta play Optic Face in Toronto again. Scheduling ridiculous, but whatever. They got to play Optic Phase in Toronto back to back to back. 2 of those being this week, and then one being the match to get back when they get back in January. And in both series, kind of went very similar. Like, um, Toronto had, or rather, Seattle had some moments that were winnable against both teams. We can go take a look at the Karachi in a second. Again, the P5 we just talked about, and I also think the final P5 against Optic is either the most insane combination of timing and miscommunication I think I've ever seen, so far this year. But they went 0 for 4 in Hardpoint this weekend, Seattle, which is tough against those 2 teams. Um, but it seems like they still got some upside in the other game modes. So, like, I assume you agree with me, not really panicking about Seattle being top 6, but they obviously want to punch above top 6 mark, and
Everybody does,
they're
yeah.
showing this week, yeah, didn't seem like they're just there yet.
I mean, everybody is like, always wants to punch above that if they can. But I mean, I think they'll be fine. I still think everything's all good on that. I don't think there's any crazy panic to it. And just
Yeah.
to address one thing, someone in the YouTube chat just talking about like, how like Draza was tweeting about like the Carolina tweets and stuff yesterday. Like he was like, just like being funny on Twitter. Like I just said, there's a difference between being confident and being stupid. And my point is like you can be confident, you can talk all the shit you want, but like when you show up to practice and you go 110% every single day and you're going as hard as fucking possible, that's not taking someone lightly. Like taking someone lightly and being confident and talking your shit, everyone talks shit. Like, there's players in, on other teams like Scrappy, for example, and plenty of other people. Like
Clayster,
you can talk your
Crim
shit.
Six,
You can have
Patrick
that
Price.
confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they were showing up to, hypothetically, when Optic play Carolina, it's like you don't just show up to scrims that entire week because you're playing a quote unquote bad team and just like not try and practice because you're having an easy match. And if you like, that's the difference. Like if the team was showing up, making comments like that, not going hard, like, oh, we have an easy weekend this weekend, like that shit does not fly. There's a bunch of that's like the difference between being confident and still going 100% and backing up shit and like doing that and then being fucking stupid. Very different.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, listen, if you are the better team in a matchup against a bottom team, it gives you some
In your
opportunity.
mind, you should always be the better team.
You should always be the better team.
But that doesn't mean you're going to take someone lightly. There's a
You
huge
shouldn't take them
difference.
lightly. Yes, we can have a conversation amongst the team, but maybe we want to try a map or two in this set because we think even if it doesn't work out, we're still confident we're going to win the rest of the maps in the set. You got to give yourself more freedom to experiment, but you should never go into a series just being like, yeah, we're going to show these kids, not trying the warm up, not do the proper preparation before the series. That's how you get fucking slammed because you underestimate people. The mindset that you have, Chris, is what championship teams have in virtually any sport and esport.
Yeah,
Take it one match at a time and don't underestimate any opponents you play.
Yeah, confidence and being dumb is much different. And again, like you can say
Yeah.
whatever you want. It's like as long as your actions back it up. I know people don't see scrims every day and people's attitudes in scrims, so it's obviously something that you can't really like comment from an outside looking in because you don't get to see it. But yeah, there's a huge difference between talking your shit and then like actually not doing anything about it because you just like you're being stupid and then talking your shit and then showing up and going 110% to make sure you're getting better every day. So just a quick clarification because I saw some people talking about it.
Well, let's get back on topic with Seattle. Do we want to pull up the VOD again? We'll just watch quickly the end of the P5
Yeah,
so we can see what we're talking about. And then we can talk about the end of that one versus Optic on Seattle.
Yeah.
Just finish that conversation.
Of course.
Well, we're going to try and show there's going to be less VOD this week, chat, because I'm going to be honest. A lot of these maps just were not close this weekend. So there's not a lot to break down.
So I think it's right here.
Yeah, we'll back it up even before this. We should set up how this actually gets to this situation because it's
I can do it. Yeah, it gets to the situation. Interesting. It all starts when Hook. So if you back it up to like here, Hook gets a really big 2-piece through this pinch right here to flip the spawns. Like this was a big play. We don't look for the pinch, which is obviously on us, and then he does that. So then after all that, you fast forward to like right around here. So this is what you were talking about beforehand. And this is a very hard break. But at the same time, bro, they're also not at 190. So they don't win off this. Obviously, they can get really close, but they don't win off this, which is also really big for us, too. We're not in as terrible as a position as it could have been, which is huge, too.
But I think where I was going to go with this is like, do you think Seattle need to do a better job of, this is a hard hill to break. There's layers you can play. But they didn't really do a good job of. So, Kyler was watching middle there. He gets back down, and then they don't really watch the street cross, and then he gets in this position that you highlighted where Alex got to win a big one. Some other gunfights go that way.
Well,
I know Abuza got an earlier
two right there. If Zach doesn't win that gunfight, we probably don't win this hill.
Yeah.
And then if we don't win this hill, like that fight between Alec and Zach was basically not the game because again they don't win off this, but it would have made it a lot harder to win off this. Obviously rotating towards P1. So
yeah,
100%. But I mean, you were talking about how they walked up the middle and stuff. I mean, that hill is a hill that seems like it's impossible to, get broken on. And it's definitely something that's easier to hold, but at the same time, like the way, like, you set up on it sometimes, like it's also, it looked like they all just kind of guessed wrong. And I'm sure there's things that, maybe you can say to do differently, but I mean.
No, I'll be the one to say it, bro. Like, listen, the way that hill plays, with your ability to sometimes spawn out street behind people, like communication and the layers make it. You have a lot of tools if you're holding that hill to funnel the other team and effectively watch your crosses and like team shoot people. And I think they played like Kyler tried his best on the wall. I don't really blame Cotter because he's getting pushed by 3 people.
They
And
got
he
back
calls out their
down.
stun.
Yeah, he
He
got
got
back
back down.
down. Yeah.
And Abuza's on tank, so he's trying to watch the street because you don't wanna die watching the tank. He does get 2. I'll give Abuza credit. The problem in that situation is Inter doesn't wanna get Peel at a hill, understandable, they need the time. Alec is sort of the one that's sort of playing some potential push coming through, like,
Ice cream
P2
side.
in Ice Cream, and he's not really supporting anything. He does eventually get into play, but it's your point, like, in a situation where he's having to child draws on the street, and he does a decent job, but doesn't win the gunfight, so
Mhm.
not the best execution for Seattle there. And then pull up the Optic one. Again, these things kinda end up by fine margins, like the series against Optic, first map, banger skid row. Seattle got off to a pretty good start. You know, they were looking good. We thought this series might be really mixy. I personally think that Optic is one of the best, if not the best skid row hardpoint team right now. Um, and it gets to a situation, Optic get a good break into the P4 here, which we don't see.
Yeah.
But it's all good. Seattle, you know, you see the situation for Seattle right now. They got Garage, they got P2, and then that timing right there where Ken gets across, and if you want to back it up and you see how it happens, is pretty much how they lose this map. They get no information. Ken's back here, gets the kill on a boozer, bada bing, bada boom. So break it down for me, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, they got 2 kills, and they just took their eye off of where, like, most likely Optic's probably gonna spawn and come from. And, like, even, like, when he was over here, like, they just took their eye off of it. They just didn't watch the cross. After those 2 kills, like, the way the spawns work and stuff, they just had to watch different stuff, and they just didn't. It could have been a miscommunication. Illy could have thought that Abuza was watching the cross or not. Abuza makes it looks like he made a mistake and kind of just cost them. Really as
Yeah,
simple as that. Like, you know, that was tough. But that wasn't a timing. But yeah.
and that's the thing. It's the finest of margins between they hold the crosses. They kill Kenny, and
Hmm.
then Optics getting pretty funneled, and Seattle's in a position with 30 points for winning that they close this out, and suddenly it's a different series. Instead, you know, they lose that map. It goes to Karachi S&D, which is pretty lit, but I thought Optic tactically on that Karachi. I don't know if you remember the map. I love the way the Optic when they get fucking Shotzi going on Karachi on defense because he's just a menace mid map, and then he's instantly just trying to pinch and pin the team in if they're gonna just try and like counter that by getting the bomb down quick at B. And Seattle had no counter to getting pinched in on the bridge. Like they
Yeah.
couldn't plant. They had no map control, and it's just fucking chilling their chicken coop or top 3. And you know, from there the series we put Optic up 2 on a series are usually gonna close out. So
Yeah, and it
which
also
they
just
did.
comes down
So
to is what you were saying. Like Seattle's a good team, and they're definitely trying to punch up, and like you know they're making
yeah.
waves, and it's what it is. They had a rough 0-2, but you know they lost to good teams, whatever. But at the same time too, it's like when you make those little mistakes, even just like how we kind of made those mistakes, we didn't watch the pinch, we got flipped at the end there. Obviously,
Yeah.
Tyler jumps off the you know like lets Alec take a little space into that hard point, and you capitalize. You can't do that with Optic either. Any good team, like especially when you're playing at the top 4 caliber teams, like if you if you give any 4 players an Optic room to breathe, our team, you know, Seattle, all these teams, like you let them make a play, like they're gonna make the play most likely, and that's what happens with Kenny. So it's like that, yeah, that's not as much of a timing. It's just a pretty big mistake, and it kind of cost them. But that's just the stuff you kind of go back and watch and try and get better from. But it is
Yeah.
tough, but still, I wouldn't. I
I
mean, what?
yeah.
What were we
I
gonna say?
still think for Seattle, so they got to play Toronto next. That's going to be a tough one. I think Toronto is going to be
Toronto's probably
pissed
gonna
about
come
this
back.
loss to
Yeah,
Boston.
they're definitely
Yeah,
gonna come back a little motivated, most likely. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, there's always been there's I want to say some any beef between these 2 teams, but I definitely think there'll be some motivation. The big match for Seattle is the Miami match because
Miami looks
the
good.
last the last thing Seattle wants to do on 2 wins right now is lose to Miami, and then you're in a must win potentially against Rocker to make winners bracket. You win that match against Miami, you're 3-3, you're in winners, and then you know you win that Rocker match at 4-3, you're probably getting a top 4 seed for
Mhm.
Boston. So I like where Seattle's at, but just like a lot of teams, these next 3 weeks are key. Putting in the right work, and getting into a good gear for these next 3 matches will get the momentum into Boston, and they're on a good one right now. You don't want to kind of dip in form right before the event. That would be a fucking killer. So we have a bunch of other teams to talk about.
Let's do it.
Um, how do we want to do this? Let's talk about Miami. I want to talk about teams
Yeah,
that I think people want us to discuss. And listen,
they're not getting
I
talked
am a
about
big
enough, so let's give them some love
I'm
here.
I'm a big Miami Heretics fan. Bickle's obviously someone that I've got to know over the last couple of years. He always roasts me because I say that Real Madrid's kind of mid, and he gets mad at me for that. But whatever, bro. He literally tweeted yesterday, Chris. He tweeted
What?
his like going live fucking tweet and a picture in a Real Madrid shirt, and then he just tagged me in the tweet. That was the only thing he was just like, bro, out of nowhere. I like wake up at fucking like 9:30. I get tagged in a Vickle tweet.
Yeah, doesn't
I'm like,
surprise
dude,
me.
what's this? Guys are trying to trip me. And obviously, Journey is someone that I've known for the last couple of years.
Juan's a
He
good
was
dude.
obviously on our
Yeah,
academy team. Juan's a good team.
he's a good dude.
Um, and I think the thing with Miami, and I mentioned this a couple of times, I'll probably stop mentioning after the show. A lot of people that are new or maybe started watching during the beginning of the CDL, this isn't a team of rookies, Miami. Virtually
No.
everybody on this team has been around for forever. Bickle's probably the person that's had the least
Mhm.
pro level experience, but everybody else has been around since the CWL or prior eras of COD. So like, I'm not surprised that they went 2-0 this week, 3-0 on the season. Like these guys are off to a very hot start this year. Like, are you surprised as well or no?
Uh, not surprised. Who'd they play? They played what? Vegas and Minnesota, right? Yeah. So
Vegas, Minnesota, yeah,
yeah,
this
that's who
week.
they played this week. So it's like, yeah, it's just I don't know. We talked about them earlier before the season started, and there's some question marks. Are they still going to be as good as they were? And personally, I thought Heretics was a pretty explosive team back in like the Black Ops 4 era. I think they had potential to like compete with the best. I would say like not super consistently. Like sometimes they would just come out a little flat and it wouldn't help them. But
Yeah.
their match day passion and like the passion that they have towards Call of Duty is really unique. I think we said this last episode, but it's really unique the way like they freaking huddle up, they get fucking crazy about it. Like they are not taking anything for granted. Like it's like they're such like an in the moment kind of team, and I feel like with that being said for them, they're just so good on match day, or they definitely perform better, and that's really important. And that's half the battle, and then obviously executing behind it. But yeah, no, these guys were a good team in Black Ops 4. They were good. Like they were a top 8, top 6 team with like potential to upset teams here and there. Like you didn't just show up to a
Yeah.
match and like walk over them ever. So them doing well doesn't surprise me. They are going to have to keep playing other teams. I don't think Vegas and Minnesota right now are at the strongest that they can be. But with that, it's still impressive that they're winning. Like they're winning those series and they're closing them out and they're making good plays. So I want to keep watching this team. This is definitely a very fun team to watch, and I don't know. It's typical out of them, but I'm not surprised that they're doing well right now because they were performers a couple years ago too. The CDL honestly kind of just fucked them over.
Yeah. Yeah. I still, I've asked around about this. Like, it's not like Heretics didn't try and get involved with the seat. Like they did try to get one of the initial franchise spots, and for whatever reason, we're just not one of the 12 teams that got in. And they've sniffed around, essentially getting involved for years, and it finally took, the situation with Misfits in Florida for them to find a business
Mhm.
arrangement that worked. And
Yeah.
they're here, and it's like it's really funny. Like there's people come on my chat, and there's like people are sleeping on this team, and I'm like, I don't know. I watch most of the talk shows. Obviously, we do a couple shows. I watched the breakdown. I know Study and have started doing their show again. I watched the Breaking Point show, and like I don't know if anyone's really sleeping on Miami coming in because they remember how good these guys were in TWL. And let's not act like they also weren't on really good teams in Challengers the last couple of years. I know they win Challengers champs. I think Goddard X and his boys basically have had that unlocked the last couple of years. But like these guys have been doing their thing since they have been in the CDL, and I'm not surprised that coming in again. You know, they haven't yet played the one thing on them, and it's not something they can control. Like they haven't yet played you guys or New York or Toronto or Optic. They played Rocker, Vegas, and Carolina. We'll talk about where those teams are at.
Yeah, but
But
they're
they're
winning
winning
them.
those
Yeah.
series clean. They're not
Yeah.
those are not going to game 5. They dropped only 2 maps. So the maps they dropped this weekend, the terminal heart they were basically both terminal hard points.
Mhm.
And it was basically kind of a mix of really good plays from the other team, bad 3 dead timings on that map, which could absolutely fuck you with spawns. Just like the rock run was crazy. Went to like a gritty third P2 type situation on terminal. But other than that, like they look, bro, I love the way they play search. Their mastery of S&D is really good. They look really good at control, which for me actually is super important. We talk about mid-pack teams and what separates them from everybody else is being good at control.
Yeah. I
Everybody
mean,
can figure out their game modes and get maps, but the swing mode is so fucking important.
most important one, dude. It's so important.
Yes, so important. So I mean, you agree with me. I love to see this team thriving. Here, they are going to play better opponents. They're gonna get back.
Mhm.
They've got Seattle over they're gonna play 2 matches twice in those next 2 weeks. Seattle and Boston first week, Optic and LAG second week. So looking at the schedule, the fact that Heretics are already 3-0, they're making winners bracket. I would be mind blown if they go 3-4 and don't make winners bracket. It would have to be some crazy. They'd have to get slammed in tiebreakers. On 3 wins, I think they're in. And I think they got at least 1, if not 2, if not 3 wins looking at the schedule. So I think if you're a Miami Heretics fan, like, bro, they might be stacking 50 or 60 CDL points to start the season, which is fucking massive. Like,
Yeah.
that puts you in a really good chance qualification spot. So I'm excited to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, that Seattle Miami match is gonna be a good one. That's
Yeah.
one that I would love to watch just to see because I think both teams are playing pretty well right now, and then obviously they can play each other and kind of fight it out to see like who's got the edge on each other. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that people were sleeping on Miami as much. Maybe this is the same thing. This can sound pretty dumb, but it's like they just had a question mark on them because people just knew how good they were back in the day. You know, they weren't like
Yeah.
a dominant team, but they were good. Like they turned a lot of heads in that Black Ops 4 season, and then it kind of just got like ripped away from them in the sense they didn't get that spot. They didn't really get to like keep that team and like, you know, keep like improving and getting better. So people just had like a super, just like a question mark of like, yo, are these guys still as good as they were? Did more talent come into the league where like maybe they're not as good as they used to be? You know, like that's always a big argument too. Like the league just keeps getting more talented. So it's like, do they still keep up? Like, I think there was like a lot of weird questions on that front. But I think they're obviously proving themselves that they're here to stay and to be a, you know, a team that's competitive for sure. Again, they didn't have the hardest schedule, but they're winning their matches and they're winning them 3-1s and they're still looking good. Now they have obviously more of a tougher schedule coming up, you know, on paper. So I'm excited to see them play. I think they're a very fun team to watch, and especially, bro, when we get to Major One, they're like one of the funnest teams to watch in that sense too. Like their passion out at land is awesome.
Yeah, I like the way they play. They take advantage of not like they pinch well. They try to make the game more chaotic. Some of
Mhm.
these teams that are below them are try to play so straight up and like they don't counteract aggression well and they just get like
They've
in a
always
track
had
meet.
that. They've always had that weird explosive
Miami
play
guys have always
style.
played that way.
Yeah, they've always
Yeah.
had that weird explosive play style that like is kind of annoying to play against when they're hot.
It's not even just in respawn. They play search that way
No,
too.
yeah,
They are
yeah.
and it can swing negatively because you can
Oh,
give
of
away
course.
bloods too
Yeah.
often around, but like
No, they're a
I
do
think
or
people
die
are gonna enjoy
team, bro.
watching them
They
play.
show up. They're a passionate do or die team. They like
Yeah.
they play by like the book that they've created. They like, you know, their strategy and they do it or they lose. Like they follow that plan until they either win the match or they lose the match, and that's why they've always been such a fun team to watch, and that's why they've always been like that explosive team that like turns people's heads, and that's why people are so, you know, excited to see them play this year again.
Yeah, I think my only thing with them, just going back to searching that I wanna yeah, it's only been a couple of maps, so it's
Mhm.
only been like 3. I've noticed that First Bloods can sometimes be an issue for them, but they've also played 2 terminals, so, like, I don't you know what I'm saying? Like,
Terminal
terminals is a
S&D
weird one.
is tough. Yeah.
I played 1 terminal, 1 skid row, 1 invasion, sorry.
Yeah, terminal
So,
S&D is tough.
invasion
The other two are fine.
invasion, First Bloods on offense can be a little bit tricky. Terminal's a fucking bang out. Skid Row's an interesting S&D map. It's a weird one.
It's a weird one for sure.
It's very, very weird.
I listen.
Uh,
You know, it is what it is. But I prefer Scrapyard S&D. I know
you
Scrapyard.
think they should give it a
I
try?
know Scrapyard's kind of a bang out too, but I think it plays better than Skid Row. But I'm not playing the game.
Interesting.
Or maybe I just like watching Scrapyard better. But like I just feel like Scrapyard played better than Skid Row. I just don't like the middle of the map in Skid Row and S&D. That like whole middle area with the window hop and the staircase and the bottom and top garage area is just like a shit show in S&D. Not the
It's a
worst for
fu
Hardpoint,
it's
but
fucking shit show.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just the problem with the map pool thing is like so there obviously unless people unless there is momentum on both the developer and the player side, there's gonna be 0 map pool changes
I don't think
like
there can be until after Major One.
until after Major 1. The
Mhm.
first set of matches after Major 1, so Major 1 ends the last week of January, and matches don't start up until I think the middle of February. So there is like 2 weeks, I think.
Mhm.
But, like, a lot's gonna have to happen in those 2 weeks, so I almost feel like it's almost one of those situations where the pros, if they wanna make a map pool change, should in the next couple of weeks kind of be like, we should make these changes and be ready to roll with them after Major 1 instead of waiting until Major 1 to have all these conversations because then it's just gonna be a fucking clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But that's forward thinking and forward planning, and I don't know
You
if
think
people are
Grease comes
capable
into
of that,
play,
so
dude? I saw Tommy and everybody like, testing Grease and stuff. He just got up. But yeah, I feel like Grease
I heard you. I
yeah,
heard
no,
what you
I
said.
know you heard me, but yeah, freaking Grease the hard point when I was watching, I think it was Tommy and Shotzi were testing it or something. I was watching Zuma stream. It was like right after our last episode. Uh I know I was saying I didn't really like the look of it. The more I watched them play it, it kind of looked pretty good. But I've also heard, and we're gonna get like into the thick of things here tomorrow and scrims and like really start analyzing the maps with the new spawns. That terminal has gotten even worse.
Oh, dude, it's so
I
bad.
heard they've made terminal like even worse than it already was for most people. And that's like a huge worry too, because I don't think we're allowed to change the map pool before Major 1, and so therefore that kind of sucks. But do we see like if Terminal is as bad as apparently they've made it out to be, which we'll find out more here in a few days, do we see Grease come in? Like, is that like a realistic thing? Like, I don't
Like,
know.
come in after Major 1 or
Yeah,
come in
after Major
before
1,
Major
like
1?
I don't know.
I think so,
I
bro.
heard
I
really bad
mean,
things about Terminal.
I played quite a few series of 8s, like, on Terminal. Like, it's on this new patch. Like, it's the map was already bad because you just hold security side and fucking
Mm-hmm.
win.
No, yeah.
It's even like they made a number of hills. Like, I don't know how you could have made them worse, but they fucking did it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's what a lot of people are
they've
saying.
gotten
And
rid
then
of some of the dream spawns that give you an opportunity to get back into play on some of these hills now. Like, it's
yeah,
just it's
I know
you
they've
get these
talked
deep
about it.
plane spawns.
People get
Like,
mad though when things change too, and usually like at first their first reaction is to complain about how something sucks, and then they learn it, and it's like, oh, it's not that bad.
no, bro, you
But
get
I don't know. I heard really bad things about this terminal,
oh, you
so
get
we'll
sometimes
see.
on like P2s, I've noticed
Mm.
you get these like weird spawns where parallel spawns where one team spawns like both teams basically spawn like bottom esky side plane. Dude, it, I hope my hope is that they roll out another patch before
Yeah, hopefully
probably
we
the
have
next
some
week or so
time.
to fix some of this stuff, like another patch, because I agree. I think terminal people are gonna lose fucking
Well,
composure tomorrow when they play it.
and we can lock it
I
back in
just
here in a second. Sorry to cut you off,
yeah,
Ben, but we can lock it back here in a second, just because we could have a lot of teams to talk about and
yeah,
stuff. And we could probably talk about, maps and stuff towards the end of this podcast.
yeah.
But someone in my chat just said, like, it's also, you have to remember too, like that terminal nerf and like that could hurt like a team like Seattle, for example. Like they're obviously a stronger terminal hardpoint team. For the most part, they like terminal hardpoint. They pick it a lot. Like, does that affect like a team like that too? Like, certain these spawns might affect the way like some of these teams are in hardpoint currently, just because like,
Yeah.
do they adapt to them quickly? Do they like the way they play? And a spawn system changes, like for example, Subbase was a bang out, and now from what I've
No, it's
watched,
not.
the little I've watched, and like from what I've heard, it's not. So now
Yeah.
it's a methodical map of like you're gonna like play smart and like logical and all that stuff. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, that can also hurt certain teams too if this terminal nerf goes away. But
Here's my prediction
what?
is already 3 of the top 4 teams. You guys, New York and Toronto, seem to not enjoy squaring up with people in Toronto in matches. I think you've all tried it. I would assume is gonna happen is people are gonna play this new terminal. They're going to lose fucking composure. They're gonna hate it even more. So I think we're gonna see it get banned in a lot of series. And then we're gonna see some teams be like, we hate it, but we also want to have it in the back pocket for Major 1. So I think we'll see it in some big moments in Major 1.
Yeah,
But I would say right now, having played on this patch, and again, there could be another patch. They could change things again.
hopefully.
I think if we're going to remove any map, for Grace is going to be a terminal.
Yeah.
So
I really
we'll see
just
what
wish
happens.
they like. I guess they can't technically talk to teams because it could just be so biased when it talks about that. But like, I don't know. I feel like some of the times that like the spawn changes, I feel like are like seem so simple on like the mini map of like, oh, on this hill if they spawned here and here, and then like your emergency spawn was here, it would probably play out decent. I wish they'd just like had a better one. But I mean, at the same time, I can't complain because they've made more patches to this game already than they did all last year. So hopefully they get it right and they try and fix it, and then we don't have to make a change. But I heard Grease played pretty well from what I've seen, and when I was watching Zuma, it played well. So
Yeah.
we can move on though. We can talk
And
about the
Chet's
next
making a
team.
good point.
Mhm.
We do have Rio, which is a map that's coming in with Season 1 Reloaded. So if that
Oh,
map is
true.
good,
Yeah. Mhm.
that could be, and then we'll probably get that in some point in
Well,
January. We
Grease
might
and
have
Meat. Meat's a good map, but not for competitive. But listen, Meat's
too
a good
small for me.
Meat's a good
It's a
map.
good
Though,
map.
dude. That's a fun map to play. I love playing Meat, dude. Not listen,
It's
that
got
might sound
good
crazy, but
gritty
it's
3
true.
lanes. Got it
Yeah.
like it's actually kind of a 4 lane. 4-lane map, kind of. Like, there's
Yeah.
that
They're
but
making
it's
good
fun.
maps,
It's
dude.
just too small.
So if Rio's
Yeah,
good
it's
too, if they're gonna continuously pump out these good maps, like we might be in for a good spot in some of the DLCs throughout the year. That could be huge.
yeah. So let's move on.
Mhm.
Let's talk about Optic Texas. I'm sure we got a lot of Optic fans as always in our chats.
Yep.
We had thought, okay, because they kind of didn't have a week of practice, might be kind of slow to adapt as well because the sub duo's got to kind of figure things out. That first series that they played, who was the team they played first this season? I think it was New York, right? They lost them game 5. I was like,
Yeah.
they got some things to work on. Had a clean one against Minnesota, and then since then, Seattle and Carolina victories this week. I think they're starting to really improve it, at least from my perspective, in a couple areas. One is S&D execution. I thought was really good this weekend, and especially in the respawns. It feels to me like they're starting to get on the same page on how they want to play, and I think a lot of that kind of starts and ends with Pred because Bruce is getting his, bro. Dash is getting his. Like Ken's obviously not so professional. I think Pred's play style. I think he's actually changed a little bit in the last couple of weeks. We'll see if it sticks, but it seems to me that playing he's playing less for the kind of these lay down cheese sort of angles and more kind of getting in the action and then playing using that to set up the freebie kills where he loves to sort of lie on his stomach. So he's been really on one the last couple of matches. And listen, Optic Texas right now 6-1 a hard point through 4 games, 3-1 in control through 4 games. Like where they're at if you're an Optic fan. I'm currently sitting at 3-1 in the match win total. What impresses you the most of the team right now, Chris?
Dude, there's no way you just talked about this Pred laying on his stomach as like the play style change for him. Like I know what you dude. Regardless, like dude, yeah, I mean, yeah, the when it comes to Optic, I mean, they're a good team. They have 4 players that can get a lot of kills. I think the biggest adjustment is not laying on stomach prone kills of playing cheesy angles as much as it's just like you have 4 players that are really good on one team that you're going to have to at the end of the day people are going to be in advantageous positions to get a lot of kills, and then someone's going to have to take like the routes where it's probably not going to see as much action and you're going to have to do it, and that's always going to be an adjustment period for all those guys, right? Like Pred on Seattle last year was the guy that always had to do crazy shit because that's just how that team was built, and then now he's on a team that's a little bit different, so I'm sure he's adjusting that way. And then, I mean, I'm sure the rest of them are doing the same. Like, I think Kenny's a really, really smart player. I think he's really good at Call of Duty just overall. Like, regardless of talent or anything, just like his mind for COD. I've worked with him. He's a great person and just a really great COD player. So I think they're just adjusting in that sense. But I mean, they slay, right? When that team slays, I think they were setting records against Carolina. Like they're going to be a really, really hard team to beat, and they just look good. And if you're an Optic fan, it looks good in the sense of like they're getting it down on firing all cylinders and all that stuff, and it just kind of is what it is. Like I expect this Optic team to be a good team. So
Yep, agreed, and that's why I was telling people to be patient. Like after the New York series, I'm like, these guys just have a lot to figure out compared to other teams in their tier, and I think they're starting to
everyone
make some
has a
really
lot to
good.
figure out. That's the thing. Like I think
Well,
these
they
guys
but they
do.
made a 2-person change, and everybody
Yeah.
else made a 1-person change. So there's just a lot more moving pieces to kind of
Mhm.
figure out on
Yeah.
top of Pred's visa issues. So they just missed a couple of days. Like the deck's a little bit stacked against them, and they just got to kind of catch up. And I think they've made some good progress.
Yeah, I think they'll continuously like keep learning and trying to get better, just like all the other like top 4 teams right now, and just try and figure it out. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they're gonna do well. They should be a great team.
So they've got Vegas, which is a dub coming up. They've got then 2 really interesting matches. Miami, so that's a big test there, and then obviously they'll play you guys at the end. And then I'll listen, you guys, and then we'll talk about it probably on the next show that we do in January. But that's always an interesting one. I don't know why the league always schedules you guys to play them at the big end of these splits. And I
Mhm.
think it's a terrible decision on the
We
league's
usually
part
play,
because
yeah, we usually play them at the end of splits.
bro, because it's such a bad spot for both teams. They're both in winners bracket, and you're just going to that match, and you're like, obviously we want to win, but there might be like a thing or two we need to work on map pool wise, or maybe we don't want to show strike. It takes away, I think, some of the pop of that match instead of doing it in the beginning of a split. But this is my personal opinion. You don't got to comment on it. I just think it's
No,
dumb
I
scheduling.
see where you're coming from in that sense. You're saying like if we're both in winners bracket, like technically the pressure is a little less off, but at the same time, like with how
Yeah,
good both of the teams are and how good both our teams are, we're always going to want to win that match no
always
matter
want
what
to
it
win.
is.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, so
it's
I know what you mean, but I think an Optic phase series is always like a incredible watch, no matter what. Like even like I know we didn't win the online ones last year and stuff. Like with I want to say was it the Hotel Hardpoint? That was a crazy ass Hotel
Yeah,
Hardpoint. But I was gonna say like
yeah,
even though
with
like
Bruce going off.
we weren't on the good side of those wins, like there were still like some crazy ass maps and shit, and still some crazy ass series and plays and stuff made by both teams. So it's still, I still think it's a great match no matter what. But yeah, but
Yep,
I kind of get where you're coming from with that. But yeah, no, I'm
yep.
excited for
We
it.
got we got that coming up at the end of January. I think I might actually
Mm.
be in LA that week, Chris. I think Tom and I are thinking about for
Oh
that
shit,
last week of matches, might be doing them from the warehouse. So if you want
sweet.
to come through,
Well, I would be
I know you got
watching
to
my
coach your
match,
team,
but yeah,
so let's see what we can get for
maybe
that.
after. But yeah, I was say I'm probably not gonna be
We
able to
got
go
other
there.
days that week. We'll probably be there all week. So
Mm.
anyway, who do we want to talk about next? I want to save.
You can do New York.
Let's do New York.
Yeah,
So let's talk. We'll do New York and then Toronto because the other two top four teams only had one series this weekend.
yeah.
One of them won their series. The other one, well, actually no, Toronto had two series. I take that back. So let's start
Mm.
with New York. New York
But
only had a series against Vegas, in which they kind of well, I don't how do I put this politely? Uh, the Skid Row hardpoint was interesting, but I think once New York kind of warmed up into that match because going into map one of that series, they didn't have a warm up because of the Sky's red card snaking situation from the week before. They got kind of blacklisted, so they were a little sketchy that first map. But once they got going, the Skid Row S&D was pretty entertaining, but then the Karachi Control was not. So New York took that 3-0, and they are off to again a pretty good start for New York. Are you surprised that New York is off to a 5-0 start in S&D this year?
not surprised. Again, they're a team that did have their struggles with S&D throughout the year last year. I want to say was it online S&D they struggled with, or was it LAN S&D? It was one of the two.
It's both, remember? Like, online, they had some issues, and then they didn't, and then on LAN,
Oh yeah, maybe
they
it
were
was like they
good and made
didn't.
sure
Then yeah,
then you guys clutched on them on that hotel S&D, but they also, like, trolled some other S&Ds during them,
no,
and then they
yeah.
pulled up to Major 5, and, in that grand final against you guys, they won all the searches, so, like,
But S&D
they've always
last
been
year
kind
was
of up and
just
down.
yeah, I was gonna say S&D last year. What I was gonna get at is just it was really weird with the sound EQ and the no dead silence. And of course, there's still like sound EQ this year, which I don't think people are supposed to be using or anything. But it's just you can still hear footsteps when you're not using the dead silence, like the covert sneakers. But like at the same time, it's also something where I feel like this year on LAN you can get away with it. And last year at Major Form when we clutched on them, like that was a LAN, but you could sound horror in that land because there was no crowd. So that was a weird one. That was a weird experience. But either way, I'm not surprised that they're good S&D. They still should be a good S&D team, and they're definitely putting in a lot of work. I think their team culture is great, and I think they're kind of trying to get Dante or Sib like in that culture and keep getting better and better. So I think the more he's around them, the more they're probably going to continue to grow and get better and mesh as a team. But yeah, no, I mean they're a great team. I know people don't talk about them a lot still. I feel like again a lot of the talks have been around other top teams, but they did
Yeah,
just win 3 majors and a world championship. So they're gonna be pretty good.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I talked to Dante a couple days ago, and he had told me S&E was their best game mode. Still working on respawn things. Again, they're trying to integrate Dante
mm,
into what they're trying to do, and kind of obviously learn the game at the same time. So I think you look at like especially last week, they dropped a couple of controls, couple of hard points. This week was clean. They only had one match. I think they're making good. Again, for all these top four teams, none of them are in danger of not making winners bracket at Major One. Everything is about trying to win as many series as possible, but also getting into good shape going to that event because that's the thing
yeah,
that fucking matters. Not I mean?
yeah, learning
So
as much
they
as
have
possible and just being as well
yeah,
rounded. Yeah,
yeah, I feel like you're in a good spot. So they actually, I think again, because I think they're in a good spot. They've got a fun schedule. Minnesota and so they're gonna play 4 matches when they get back. Minnesota and LA Thieves week 1 in the middle of January. So that's should be 2 wins, but LA Thieves is sort of still in a fucking enigma to me. Get to that in a second. And then Toronto and Boston is an interesting one to close out because Toronto should be a fun one. And then Boston, Boston's like just a weird team. To me, that's two enigma teams, the Thieves and Boston situation. So let's talk Toronto because then I want to talk about Thieves and Boston.
okay,
Toronto had two series, and they were both 3-0s, but not in the way you might expect here.
very opposite days.
So they pulled up to the match against Carolina, and it was ugly, bro. It was really ugly. Like, the scrap tweet after the series, like GG's to London or whatever the fuck they're called now. Like, just yeah, I mean, like they did the classic like no respect. They just
I
slammed him. It
mean,
was
the
done in
amount
30
of beef
minutes.
between like Clay and Scrap just talk so much shit to each other, so
Yeah,
he's gonna be as disrespectful as he possibly can after that match, 100%. Vice versa, if
and
Clayster won that match, it would have been the
yeah,
exact
he
same thing.
talked a lot of shit. And then the Boston series. Look, Envoy probably individually had probably one of his worst fucking series he's ever had as a pro. Like, it
Mhm.
can't happen. That being said, like map one was still winnable. They mega toss on a fucking P5 Burger Hill. They had like the worst setup P4 Burger Hill on terminal. They had one of the worst setups I've ever seen in my life on the hill. The S&D Karachi, Boston pretty much controlled, and then the high rise control was one that Boston dominated, including a 1v1. It was almost a 1v3 for Insight, bro. I hate fucking high rise control. 1v3 for Insight. He throws a fucking nade, blows up the fucking oil drum, kills two of the guys,
I couldn't
comes down to a
believe that.
1v1.
I
I
could
was
not
actually
believe that.
mind blown. And then Austin with a good wide chow on Jamie Insight kind of hits him with the wide chow, slides out, gets the kill, and then Boston close out the 3-0. It was a big series for a couple players on Boston, but just like I don't know, man. I you agree with me? Like I'm not really overthinking the loss to Boston. It sucks for them. You don't want to drop points, but everybody's
No,
gonna have a stinky series
I mean,
eventually.
yeah, you're gonna have a bad series. I mean, Envoy played pretty underwhelming. He said he tweeted. I think his tweet was couldn't buy one GGs or whatever. Like he had a bad series. It
Yeah,
happened. You're gonna wake up on days every once in a while and have that. You never want to have that in a very important setting, and that's like why the best are the best. But Toronto is still a really really good team. They've been great in practice and stuff too. So it's just more or less like I think they just kind of had an off series, but at the same time, as much
yeah,
as you're saying Toronto had an off series there, it's like Boston's also not like a team where if you do have an off series, it will be an easy win. Like Boston's still a good team. I know they lost to us. They played at close maps with us. I had I think we made mistakes. I'm sure they think the same thing. But they're a good team where if their players are playing well, like they're going to be pretty, they're going to be a good, like they have like the firing power to have like some explosiveness in some of the respawns. Their searches should be pretty good just with that roster on paper. So I think that Boston team's going to continuously get better and better too. Priesta specifically has got like a really really good attitude. Slasher's a really smart player, and then the other two have the explosive firing power, right? To follow behind their lead. So if they keep their heads on straight, they shouldn't be bad, and they should just keep improving. And then yeah, I think that 1v1 between Insight and Slasher was nuts. I can't believe that Insight even got it to a 1v1.
it
And you
was
know what's
wild.
nuts about that too is that I thought so. It was Slasher versus Insight. Both like the main AR, like the slower kind of players. I think
Yeah,
Slasher made a good play by challenging him because I'm sure
yeah,
they might have called out that it was like it's Austin, it's Slasher. Like he's probably just gonna hold like he's probably thinking like he's probably gonna hold the pre and just wait for me to chow, right? So Slasher running
yeah.
at him was like a pretty big brain play, but like it was weird. Insight like predicted his play, and it just looked like he just didn't hit the best of shots. Like I feel like Insight like almost had that in the bag, and then like I don't know. It was crazy, but that was a nuts. That was a crazy moment. The whole entire roster, like our Atlanta face, was watching it. We were all going crazy, bro. We couldn't believe it because when he was aiming at that,
That's
we're like,
mind
shoot! We were
blowing.
like, shoot it, blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. And then it got to a one where we were like, holy shit! Like it was an intense match. Like if that, I wish that was a LAN series. If that was a LAN series with a crowd, especially at the Boston Major, obviously being the home, the home crowd, that would have been
Yeah.
nuts. But yeah, no, I think we're gonna see a lot of cool ass moments like that this year.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about Boston because I don't want there's much else to be said about Toronto. They've got four matches coming up. Seattle, Thieves, New York, and Vegas are going to win most of those. So they'll be in winners bracket. Let's talk about Boston. Then we'll talk about Thieves.
Okay.
Boston is such an enigma team to me because they play series
Yep.
like they have all the ones prior where they look like the worst team in the league in search. Like even in the Thieves series they played at the beginning of this weekend, like they went up 4-0 in that map and then lost six straight. Like
I don't think that
absolute
makes them look
breakdown.
like the worst team in the league in search, though. You can go up
I
4-0. You
mean,
can't be terrible at it. I know you can also lose six straight, but
yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
I
that's
mean,
yeah.
they lost two to you guys. I think the terminal against Seattle was close, but I feel like Seattle kind of controlled that, like
But the
start to
Karachi search
finish.
versus us too wasn't like a I don't feel like you lose that as like a Boston player if you put yourself in their shoes. You don't lose that match and like be like, damn,
Cap's
we fucking
feet were
suck.
stick. Cap's feet were sticking out round 11. Like that's a tough way to lose.
Yeah, that was tough.
In that one.
But that's what I mean.
Uh,
You don't lose that though, and like I don't think you lose that and say like, damn, like Boston sucks at S&D. You know what I mean?
well, Boston though, to be fair, have been one of the worst teams at converting 4v3s and 3v2s and bombs
Yeah, we
down.
talked
Like,
about
they
that.
just
But
man-up
that's not a
situations
terrible
that are
problem to
apart.
have. You're saying that they looking like the worst S&D team in the league right now. I feel like that's like kind of harsh. Maybe I'm just being too
Uh,
nice, but like,
I mean, it's some combination of them, LA Thieves, Rocker, and Carolina. So
yeah. But if you're getting the first bloods, like that doesn't mean you're terrible at S&D off the rip. Like that's a fixable problem. In my opinion, I think getting first bloods and then not converting them is annoying as fuck to deal with. It is, but like that is you're having control of the round and you have to like make like little adjustments to control it. Where if you're a terrible S&D team, you're just getting first blooded and just like not getting anything going. Like that Seattle team last year where that was really bad at S&D. Like I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think they were getting a lot of first bloods for the most part. When they were, they weren't converting them. But like I don't think they ever were in positions to even win half the maps. They weren't even going up 4-0 and then blowing them. They were just getting slammed for the most part. I'm sure there was some that they kind of threw, but
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think to be very specific with Boston, what I think their search issue is like, it's less even the 4v3s. It's they on offense like will lose rounds that that they should be winning, either because it's 4v3 and then they're not effectively in a position to plant the bomb
mhm.
and using their main numbers to get there, or when they do get the bomb down, they get clutched down by making bad decisions.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah, they do
and
have a
and I
very fast-paced team between the two younger players on their
yeah,
roster.
and
Yeah,
and they're and they are the worst plant win percent. Again, small sample size. We'll see this holds like, but they have only won 45% of the rounds in which they plant the bomb. It's not great. Like that is by and right now the league average is like in the mid 70s.
yeah,
So
no, but planting the bomb on this game, depending on what map you're playing, though, should be like
yeah.
automatic for some of them. But yeah, I think they're gonna keep working out some kinks. Again, they have the veteranship of Priesta and Slasher trying to like get the other two on their team to like become the best players that they can be and stuff. And I'm sure there's gonna be some growing pains there, but I do think this Boston team has the potential to show up a little flat sometimes. Yeah, that can happen. They showed it, but at the same time, like they do have the firing power where if they're playing well, like they can be a really good team too. And I'm sure like that's probably how they feel at the moment. So I think they just got to lock in some little things, but I still have faith in them.
Yeah, and listen, like I think the win against Toronto is big for their momentum because if they were 0-4 going into the break, I mean, you're basically in a we need to win
Mm,
every single series we get back
they
in order
needed
to
that.
make winners bracket.
That was
They
huge.
really needed
Yeah.
that because I think watching them play Respawn, they've been very competitive with pretty much everybody they played at Respawn.
Mhm.
It's the search that's kind of holding them back. Individually, I know Preston sort of didn't have some great series. He played really good yesterday. I'm not really worried about that with Preston. I thought the big X factor in the team is always the two young players. I thought yesterday they got a great series out of Cap, an even better series out of Snoopy. And when that guy gets
Yeah,
going,
Snoopy was fine.
you when you were seeing it on the terminal hard point, and you were seeing it on the S&D Karachi, when he gets going, that guy's got insane movement. His ability to get out and not get traded when he gets bloods is super key. Like if they can effectively, because he's young, he's raw. You listen to his comms, his communication's not that great. I'll be straight up about it. Like if they can mold this guy, and I see the potential in him. Like he is, we talked about how good teams are when you get a top level sub player. Like he can
Yeah.
potentially get there.
Well, the sub players are like so like almost probably the most important sometimes. So I think he's got really good leadership around him to like develop Snoopy into a good player if they
Yeah.
stick it out. But again, we'll have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah, it goes 2 ways.
Mhm.
You can have good leadership, but if you don't listen to what they say, you're never gonna develop. It's a
Yeah,
you've
you see
gotta
that
wanna
happen
get
too.
better.
Yeah.
They've gotta be able to get through to you, and it's a collective between you, the veteran players on your team, and your coaching staff on,
Yep.
like, getting better every single day. And I think for them, it's they've got 2 veterans, 2 young players. The veterans have good comms. I'll be honest, I think Snoops if you go back and watch that Terminal Hardpoint, I know they won it. Listen to their comms, I think the comms are okay. They're a little frantic, minimal comms really at times between Cap um and Snoop on in terms of directing traffic and like small talk. They've got to really work on that, I think, because it's going to really hold them back sometimes. But I see the potential is there. Their ceiling is there. Unlike some teams in the league, they're one in three, but I think they can get better. I
Oh,
don't think they need a
absolutely.
roster change or anything like that. I think they're
No.
fine. But their schedule is not super easy coming back in January. They do start off against LAG. I would say that they're favorites in that match, but LAG have shown that they're capable to take teams pretty deep. So we'll see. Then they play Miami and New York. So Boston, you've got to think in order to make winners bracket at their home event, need to probably win 2 of the next 3. I think there's a world where 2 and 5, depending on a bunch of teams going 0 for 7, might get you, like, the 8th seed. There's a world where that would happen, but you don't wanna bank on that. You get 3
No,
wins,
hell
you
no.
control your destiny to get in, so
You don't want to bank on being 2 and 5 either, just because even if you go 2 and
you're gonna
like,
play the 8th seed, you're gonna
well,
play, like
it's you're probably gonna you're gonna probably play a really tough team, and just in
yeah,
general, like if you're losing 5 matches, like that's not looking good for the major either way. Even if you do sneak in winners, like anything can happen, but like yeah, you want to avoid that at all costs. You want to make sure you're performing more than that because as tough as the schedule you can have, like you can't just use the schedule excuse. You have to start winning matches and shit. So even if that does
the,
get you in, that's not something that you get in with confidence.
the
But
last Boston thing is that they have played 6 hard points and 3 of them have been on terminal, so speaking to your earlier point about how terminal hard point changes might affect
yeah,
the team,
they're a
I'm
good
very
terminal
curious
team too. Yeah,
yeah, see
that
how
that
they
can hurt
handle
them.
the
Yeah.
match. Yeah,
There's also
so
a world where the terminal is just so bad, and then there's like one or two teams that just like still play it, and they're just good at
yeah,
it, where it like helps them. So you never know. But it definitely might
you
just
never
get
know.
banned more because it's such a shitty map now. If that's actually the case, yeah, we can move
Yeah,
on. We can talk about like LA
let
Thieves,
me
right?
see how yeah, we
What?
can move on, but I'm actually curious as far as terminal being banned in series. Terminal is banned in 4, 5, 6 series played so far, so not a lot less than I thought, but that number might go up. 6 of
Yeah, I was gonna say like, what was the most banned map?
24, I think. 6 of 20, I think. The
You
most banned map in
yeah
Hardpoint? Evasion was banned 5 times, Karachi was banned 9 times, Skid Row 7, Subbase is 14, so
yeah
Subbase by far.
that was gonna be my guess because like that's just like a bang out
Yeah.
map with crazy spawns. So like a lot of people don't like playing that map.
They had another I don't know what's going on here week of, like, they get on after losing to you guys,
Mhm.
they play Boston, and they looked great. Invasion Hardpoint was, "Hey, well, maybe this Steve team was finally executed." They were pretty hype after the series, and then it's hilarious. Have you seen the play or no?
No, not well.
I'm gonna
Maybe
I'm gonna
I'd have to
I'm gonna
see
send
it.
it to you. I wanna see your reaction live because fucking I was watching it with Sam, and dude, Sam, Sam, like, he's gonna root for his former team, like,
Got it. All right,
on,
pulling it up.
on so this is on so LAG had control of most of his map chat. It's 218 to 151 when I linked this VOD, so LAG should be winning this. 37 seconds left in the game. So, can you give me your thoughts on this rotation of P2? What do you think's by just fucking bombing that middle window instead of just trying to fucking play around new or at least you
Yeah,
might
like
have
right
missed it. It was
here.
so
Like
quick.
right here, yeah. What, you're saying like number 6 and number 7?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of teams in this map specifically though, Ben, like speaking having the back of P2 seemed like a good like since the spawns can change, like seems like, like, oh, we have the back, this is good. But like if you have the back area and you're spawning like back middle, like people are spawning
Yeah.
right on the side, you're spawning in the back and middle, like you can trap people pretty badly. Like that's like what people were like do
Yeah, they gotta basically
if
hold
they
all the
don't
time because if
yeah.
there's any lights on, they're fucked.
And realistically, the best way to hold time is to kind of go for what they did. So I feel like they're on their back foot. If they don't make the play and it's not successful, I feel like it's like a back foot, like last, like fuck, like here we kind of have to do it. Like I to be honest, it looks trolly as shit, but it's just kind of.
I see the vision, and again, this
I'm
one's
telling you, it's like
changed.
if you just sit, like bro, like I know like you're literally spawning in a new hill, but if you just sit in that new hill and let them spawn around you, every kill you get, they can spawn side platform, they can spawn front, they just
Yeah,
didn't
it's
execute
gonna be
it.
a
And again,
flying
I'm
out
telling you,
yellow.
if
There was no
they're on their
execution.
back foot, bro, like they got to do something. They've already, I mean, if you go back and analyze this map, they've already made so many mistakes probably that has allowed this fucking, unless they went absolutely just crazy and they just killed everything that came through every pinch and every door. It's just tough, dude. It's
I'm
like
telling
right
you,
here,
Chris,
like if
like,
they kill number 2, like they can
yeah,
do something with this. You can't pinch the top side here. You can't pitch the front window here, and you can't pitch middle here. So LAG is now only.
wrap time. They had like terrible P1s. No, P3 is already a clusterfuck. Ramp hills like P4, which can be a decent money hill in this game, played terrible. They had to try and break all the P5s. Like they were never in control of this map, but it's kind of a microcosm of sort of um of that day. Like they then went to a Karachi that went round 11, which was an interesting one. That they managed to lose, and then they kind of got blown away on the high rise control. My concern with Thieves right now and again, it's early, so I don't know if this is going to um, prove true, is that they seem like potentially one of those teams that if they lose map 1, it could be tough for them to overcome the momentum. They're not a like, I kinda hate to say that because I think there's so much you can control after map 1, but you gotta think, like, with how this team is built right now, they don't have that veteran leadership they used to have on the team with their old squad. Like, there's just a lot of trust in being able to execute. You got a team now with, like, Cammy and Afro had a terrible year last year on Rocker. They had this fucking problem too. Dan, I love Dan, but, if you watch Dan stream, like, Dan, Dan's kinda got a lot of energy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not you know where I'm trying to go with that? And then they've got Joe, who's just really young. I don't see a lot of, like, within the team concept of, like, being able to really rally themselves individually or as a team if they kinda troll fucking map 1 and they're just kinda pissed. But they
Yeah.
could have made this 1-1. They could have made this series 1-1 if they had kinda executed a few rounds on Karachi a little better.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's still early to tell, but I see the concern there. But yeah, no, this LA Thieves teams is weird just because, yeah, like I feel like again, like they have like some good moments and some bad. They're just like kind of up and down. Like if I remember correctly too, versus LAG, I don't think Cammy and Ghosty played very well. Like they kind of came
No.
out flat. Yeah, so it's just like I don't know. And also, dude, weirdly enough, I'm not a huge believer in this, but like, could we talk about the LAG versus LA Thieves thing? Isn't that such a weird
Bro,
stat?
why it's so
I like
bizarre.
I'm not a believer in that because like rosters change and it's like completely different rosters throughout the years of like from the start to finish. But yeah, for some reason LAG's just got LA Thieves number, bro. I don't know. Maybe
Bro,
they're
and
just
some of
destined
these
to lose,
LAG
dude.
teams have been fucking like, listen,
LAG's
LAG
has
does
had some rough
has won a
teams.
ma LAG's won a major before, like, we'll tip obviously what happened
No, but even that team
in
though
this
that won a
one.
major, they weren't like they won
They
that
weren't good,
major. Like they beat us in
and
the
they weren't
finals,
good.
tippable, and then they sucked. That's what I'd be like.
Yeah,
They didn't even make champs that year. Like, bro, that's an impressive feat in its own, in the sense of like like it's like how did they not make champs? So it's like so weird that like I don't know, it's an odd stat, but like this LAG team's still up in the air in the sense we don't really know. It's small sample size. We'll let them like no harsh judgment on these guys. Yeah, they're still so new and a lot of young talent and stuff. But yeah, like just in the past, like yeah, like LAG's has got LA Thieves number somehow. I don't know. It's pretty crazy.
I'm, the Steve's team is listen, they, here's their schedule, bro, and I'll get to my point. Toronto, New York, Carolina. I really don't see how like, Toronto, I don't think they're gonna beat. The way their search is right now, New York, I don't know, Carolina, I mean, they're probably gonna have 2 wins before they go, so they're gonna start in losers bracket, like, this Toronto this Steve's team's in a weird spot because I just don't from my perspective, and they're probably thinking the same, like, I don't know how long of a leash they're gonna give the, like, Cammy Afro duo experiment, like,
So
running
you're
it back
leaning
from
towards a
last year.
change already?
I don't think they should make a change right now,
Mhm.
but the what is in front of them doesn't seem like they're gonna do well this split, and, in the past, and I know they've talked about, like, the Cold War year, they think they made too many changes that year, but I also know, like, kinda the people in the front office and the people on this team, like, if they lose faith in their ability to win, like, will they wanna make a change before again, this is the problem with the rust change thing in Major 1. If there is a player or 2 that everybody wants, it then becomes like a game of chicken because you don't wanna be left holding the bag of, like, the 3rd and 4th option of pickups when you coulda just gone earlier and gotten the guy you wanted. So, I'm gonna be curious to see what Thieves do over the course of next 3 weeks. My prediction is they don't make a change. But I
Yeah.
do think that if they start in losers bracket, the likelihood of them getting top 6 or higher is unlikely, although we've seen past Thieves teams make good losers bracket runs. I think then they would make a change after Major 1. They're trending in that direction. I just don't think it's gonna happen before the event.
I don't think so either. That's why I asked, but yeah,
Yeah.
curious. We'll see.
It's a tough one. Well, let's talk about some teams that might be starting to think about changes. I'm gonna start with one that I personally don't think should change, and this one might surprise you guys, is the LAG, unit. I know we just talked about the win over Thieves, and they've had some the reason I don't think they should make a change is that they have actually looked fair as compared to the rest of the people in this sort of category, like, they've actually looked a lot more competitive in some of these teams. Like, they should have beaten New York. Toronto, they had no business winning that series. Um, but New York, they coulda won, and then they beat Thieves. So, realistically, there's a role where they're 2-1 right now. I like their ability if they can close out some of these maps to get it done. Um, so do they have the talent to be like top 4, top 6? I don't know. But I don't know how you feel about LAG, but I'm a little bit higher after this weekend. I'm a little bit higher in LAG than maybe I was last week.
Yeah. I know we talked about it either episode before this or previously before that. I think Assault had that tweet saying like their practice was looking way better than it's like, than like what they're
Yeah.
showing out and all that stuff. So it seems like they have still the belief in themselves to obviously do good. And then they come out here versus LA Thieves and they 3-0 them, right? And they looked really good that way. They played New York close. And again, you could argue that they could have won depending on the lens that you're looking at that through. And so, yeah, I mean, I think right now they have belief in themselves and their system. I know I don't know much about their coaching staff and all like about this team too much, but I know that it seems like they're pretty tight over there in the sense of like how they want to do things, and they're trying to prove a lot of people wrong. Because when they made this decision, there was a lot of feedback and negative feedback towards this LAG team, right? Especially with everything that went down and how it went down. So they're trying to prove people wrong. It seems like they got the right attitude, even when they weren't getting things to click. They still had like the belief in themselves, saying practice was going better and stuff. And I mean, that's half the battle there. And to see how they can continue to do it. Still a small sample size, and just see how they keep playing. Like obviously we play them next, so we're gonna have to continuously get better and bring our game to every match, like I was saying earlier. But yeah, I like the aura around this team early on in the season compared to what it's been previously. Because again, I feel like this LAG team last year was miserable to watch just because it just looked like they were just broken from the start. And then
They had a good honeymoon, and then it
no, they
never got
did,
better
and
enough
then
to give
it's
a
yeah, and then it
yeah.
just like came crumbling down, and I feel like it just never looked like it was better, and it just again the whole like vibe of the team just looked like they were just giving up. They just didn't care. And then
Yeah.
before that too, they've had some moments like that in the past. So it's like it would be nice to see this team continuously fight through a lot of the criticism and stuff and keep doing what they're doing. And like if they do that and things go well, we'll see. And also, I don't know their coach very much. I've only heard good things about their coach though
LVOs.
through people that I've known in either challengers and stuff like that. So again, maybe he's doing a lot more than you think too, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that can go into that. So I like their attitude so far as a team, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see how it plays out for them.
Listen, we got VOs tweeting Jose Marino gifts, who's already a man of culture, you know that. Uh Diamond Content play great. Love that. LAG, the other thing I like is their S&D execution has been really good, really clean. They're winning the rounds they should win. My one thing to watch for LAG, and really any team has this as we get to sort of the pre-event stage of Major 1, is teams kind of figuring out how to properly game plan and veto against other opponents by sussing out, okay, this team's actually really good at said map. We can't beat them in scrims. They've been clearly beating people with this in matches. We should take this out and play them on something else.
Yeah.
Something to watch is LG's played 5 hard points and 3 of them have been on sub base.
Yeah, they like
So
that
I
map.
wonder if they like that map. Again, spawns will change.
Yeah,
Curious to
does
see.
that affect them too, right? So like does that affect
Mhm.
them completely? Like, yeah.
High rise control, they played a lot. Like teams might just be like, all right, well, fuck it. We're just not gonna put them on high rise. They gotta beat us on the more straight up maps in Invasion and Karachi. So
Mhm.
um we shall see, but I like the progress for LAG. The next 3 teams though, I don't like the progress.
And listen, I'm gonna start this one off. I'm taking the lead on this, dude. We're talking about
Yeah.
Vegas, and I'm talking to you directly, dude. I was listening to the
Okay.
flank for 5 minutes
Shit, here we
yesterday.
go. Here
Listen,
we go.
this is not a lie. I swear. I was
5 minutes.
downstairs. I was cooking up some dinner, meal prepping some meals for the week, getting ready for my day. I put on the flank, and I hear Ben J. Nassim. The first thing I heard you say
Yeah.
is that, guys, if I'm Vegas, I'm dropping Standy, I'm dropping Purge, and I'm moving on with my day. There, I said it. That is exactly what I heard you say, or like,
Yeah, 100% I said that.
yeah. So you think this team should make a change
Yes.
right away?
Mhm. 100%.
Okay. So now I'm curious because like this is more like a conversation. I don't even know like what they should do.
Yeah.
Again, like they're not my team to deal with, obviously. But so we're dropping Standy and Purge for who,
Yeah.
why, what, where? What are we doing? Explain to
It
me.
might even be well, okay, it might even be. So here's the biggest problem.
Okay.
They look control is a huge problem for them. In every series they have played, I've not been impressed in control. Like the series against Minnesota, super trolley control.
Mhm.
Carolina controlled that in invasion against them. Heretics, I know the invasion control was like all defenses, but I was still confident going last round that Miami was going to win that. And then they got outclassed against New York this weekend. Like they're not going to win a single fucking series if they can't win control. And then when it comes to the other two game modes, bro, every time I watch them play, like this team is getting close to winnable situations mid map. You know, I was a Skid Row against New York where they got off to a good start, and then I was watching the second rotation, and they can't decide on P3s and P4s if as a team they want to rotate, they want to 3-1 hit scrap. Like they just seem so indecisive, and it seems like they lack the ability to finish these maps. And if you are a team in their position where skill is going to be a mismatch against top four, like if you cannot like as a team execute correctly, like they are going to be in serious trouble. On top of the fact that like last week, not this week, last week, they should have put Carolina away and they
They
didn't.
should
And it
have.
went to a map
Yeah.
5 and they should have, and then they didn't. Like this
Wait,
team has a huge problem finishing right now. I just don't eventually it's you're gonna swing either one way or the other way. Either they're gonna start getting lucky to an extent and closing out these maps, or they're just not going to be competitive anymore and they're just going to get blown away. And so looking at this team, and by the way, do you know what their schedule is? I made this point as well on the show. You know who they play the next 3 games?
who?
Optic Phase in Toronto.
For F3. So
So so go ahead.
no, so okay. So I heard everything you said there, and like obviously I think did they have they had a tough invasion with, was it who they didn't, I know they had the whole like they didn't close out the one invasion. Didn't they do kind of something similar again on the same map? Or did I dream that?
On Invasion Hardpoint, it was
No,
against Miami.
search. Didn't they have another like tough search where they should have closed out?
Yeah, it was against Miami.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And against it was
Yeah.
against Miami. Like
So yeah, no, they're definitely having like trouble in that sense. But like, so you said this team should make a change. Clearly, you're a Vegas hater right now, which is whatever. You're standing on your opinion, whatever it is. I don't. That's up to you. But why purge and Standy? Like what like so
well,
like if you're gonna get rid of them, like what do you do? Like for who? Like where are we going with that?
Here are the issues. Purge, listen, he's in my chat a lot. Seems like a nice kid. Right now, hasn't been probably their weakest player from a slaying perspective. I like Standy. Eli definitely has the ability to change series. I'm just not a huge fan of his play style at times, and it can be very difficult to build a system because it has to be built around him. These are not really going to be able to change his play style. I assume you agree with me that Standy's got a
He's
unique
got an
play
awkward
style.
play style for a sub player. I will
Yeah,
say that he does have an awkward one.
It can be very tricky to work around. I'm not saying it's impossible
Mhm.
because I think he's been on teams where they have been able to figure it out. I think when he joined Vegas last year, he really helped them to an extent get to where they needed to get to last year. I know they came up short, but I thought he was a great pickup last year for them. I'm keeping Dylan because I think Dylan's actually played pretty decent this year. And I really, really like Nero and what he's shown so far this season. The problem that Vegas has, and you could say, well, who would they want to pick up? The problem is that people that they want to pick up may not want to come on the team because they're going to look at the schedule or they'll have been on the org before and they're like, I'll take my chances. No, thank you. Because I see people in my chat being like, well, what about Donnie? What about Pierce? What about Asim? What about Brack? What about
There
Crime?
are a lot of good
Like, I think
challengers.
they are the problem for Vegas now is they're stuck in a cyclical problem of they always suck. And now they've sucked for so long that people see this spot on that team and it's like, why am I going to go there and chalk my stock, not make champs anyway? And then my chance is up. So like they're in such a weird spot of like, I think they do need to make a change, but like they may hit people up and people were just going to be like, let me wait to see if some other teams who are maybe possibly looking at changes might do that. And I'd rather go with that option. It's just, I feel for everybody involved. It's a shitty situation they're in.
Yeah.
All around.
So I see where you're going with the whole Vegas thing. Again, I'm sure they don't like they could have closed out some maps and like looked out some better stuff and things. Their control is obviously a little worrisome, but whatever. Like I was just curious to hear what you had to say with that. But the thing with what you said just about like they always suck and stuff. Like, I get where you're going with this, and I know that like they have like Vegas and Paris Legion and like the whole history of the team is not good. But it's like, I feel like the attitude of going into a team, if you have the attitude of like, oh, this team just sucks, I'm just going to join the league to like, get my contract and like be in the league again. Like, I feel like I wouldn't want to pick up someone with that attitude. Like, dude, you can join the team and turn it around. Like, I feel like you're talking about Vegas right now where, again, they are losing. They're not looking good. They have some tough history behind their org right now. But,
yeah,
like, it's still super early into the season. And, like, I mean, bro, they could have closed out some maps and stuff and been a little better. So if you were to make a change, like I would want someone that like has the confidence that like, yo, I'm joining this fucking team and I'm gonna turn it around. I don't know. Like I feel like
Yeah, I
uh,
see where you're going with that.
that's like my thing. It's like I feel like you can't just like not want to join a team in that sense. I still think it's really early. Like that Vegas team last year almost turned it around. They had a really tough ending and scheduling and all that stuff towards the end, but they almost turned it around. And funny enough, is that when they picked up Standy in
Well,
like that
I think
team?
the key point in their season
So it's
was
kind of the
was the
opposite, but like
Columbus event. Bro, they went to the Columbus
no,
event, and they should have gotten
they
points
fell
out of the
flat on
event,
their
and
face.
they
Yeah,
fell flat.
that was tough.
And they tried their best in Major 5, but they put themselves again, we've talked about this, what might be the calculus as to why some of these teams might get changed. You do not wanna be in a position where going into Major 5, you gotta get, like, Sunday. That's
Yeah,
just making your chances of doing it nil. Like, you wanna, at best, try to walk away with 10 points to lock it in. I
yeah,
just think it's a recruitment problem for Vegas. Like, I clearly don't think this team can win as constructed. I don't think this team is going to walk away with anything more than 10 CDL points in this split. I think their major 2 split of LAG, Minnesota, Toronto, Boston, Thieves, and Seattle, and Carolina is actually pretty good. So if they can keep this team together, get some momentum, I like their ability to get some points during the major 2 split. Um, but, like, they're going to have if they wanna pick people up, yeah, I agree with you. You don't wanna pick people up that, like, aren't gonna wanna, you know what I mean,
yeah. No,
be invested,
you
but they
can't
gotta
have
make a
someone
good
with that
pitch.
attitude, dude. That attitude is such bullshit
It
because I understand
I
it, but
agree with
like you
you.
can't just like
It goes both ways, though.
it does.
Like,
Yeah,
you don't wanna pick people up that have that attitude, but they've gotta be able to make a good enough pitch to people. Because the question any player is gonna ask is like, "Bro, if I join this team, like, bro, our schedule is Optic Phase in Toronto, and then we're in losers bracket, and we're probably potentially playing one of those teams again, or like a Seattle." Like, you know what I mean? Someone might get a really tough draw come down to us. We're walking away, and we're on a 4-game fucking lose streak. So you pick me up, we go, and we immediately don't fucking win until, like,
no,
March.
it's yeah.
So what's your pitch on how we're gonna make this work? Like, that's I don't know. It's a tricky situation, Chris.
No, I no, it
They're
is.
gonna
Yeah, I get both sides
put
of
you
it.
on
You have
point.
to you want to be realistic with yourself too, and especially if you're in the challengers and there's a lot of good challengers players, right? You're waiting for a better opportunity, on paper of like, yo, I can join a different team if they suck. But at the same time, there might just not be a spot open where it's also going to like force your hand of like maybe I should just join this and try and make this roster as best as I can. So they definitely need a good pitch and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, Purge is still a huge question mark because he's still super new, and he's maybe not playing his best right now. So I can see why like you have some concern there. And like Standy's playstyle, it can definitely be a little awkward as a sub, but I don't know. Like I feel like going that drastic of a change right now, I feel like still Standy kind of gives them like a decent ceiling of like where they can be, and like Nero's already really aggressive, so like Standy's playstyle around Nero, like I don't know, I'd have to really like I guess analyze it more, but we'll have to see. I just feel like when you want to make that crazy decision, it's like who would you replace Standy for, and who would you replace Purge for? Like if it wasn't like people you kind of use like people are just not going to want to join them, leave that out of the argument. Like who do you want for them that would make them like so much better of a team? And like also is it like on them? Like I do think keeping attached, he's always going to be consistent. I do think that's a
Yeah.
smart play, and I think Nero's really aggressive. I mean I just heard you talk about Standy. I don't think Standy's really that much of a problem. Again, Purge is just my question mark because I haven't seen him play that much.
I mean, I'd love to put I would love in an ideal world. I watch a lot of Fantasy team play, and Nasty looks really good in this game.
Nasty, but
Nasty
Nasty's more like of an AR, no?
well, that's for Purge coming in the
Oh,
air
for Purge,
spot.
sorry, my bad. I thought you
Yeah.
meant Standy. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just the problem with the Nasty thing is that, like, I don't know if he's got a P1 still active, you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
that's the problem with European
Yeah.
players.
Well, Nasty
Is
also
like,
definitely had some potential with the AR too. I feel like he was playing better
yeah,
with the
he's
torch.
just on fucking dysfunctional London like, bro, he's on these the most dysfunctional London teams. They're
Mhm.
just not getting better on a daily basis. I've heard all the stories about their teams, like,
Well, yeah,
I
no.
still
Again,
think,
I know those that team was another LAG where it's like their attitude as a team was just fucking miserable. Like, so it's like not just because of Nasty. I'm not saying because of Nasty, just in general. Like that environment just makes everybody worse, and that shit sucks.
yeah. From what I heard about the situations, I don't think Nasty was ever really the problem. It's just, bro, there were other people on that team getting in the way of that team ever
All right,
getting
so
good on
you
a
go
daily
Nasty for
basis.
Purge. Who do you want for Standy, dude?
For Standy, uh, I mean, I think you need someone that plays quick enough that you can kind of enable the best in Nero. So for me, I'm looking either like Kremp or Asim. I think both of them have played a pretty good solid speed. They look like two of the best sort of speed players in NA Challengers right now. So I would like to go down that route for either of those players.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
It took a while to get there, but we got there. I was just curious who you wanted to like see potentially. I don't really have an opinion on that in the sense of that because I just know how roster changes, in my opinion, as much as it does matter. You need to slay, you need to be performing and all that stuff. And depending on what's going on with the ins and outs of that team, it's also a big attitude thing in practicing as well. I think that is like a really, really underrated thing. You know, you have to obviously have a good attitude and then you have to execute, of course, to stay on the team. But I think a lot of the times when teams find themselves in like the bottom four, not saying that Vegas is going to stay there right now, but just like how, they're not looking great at the moment. It's just like, that attitude of just like the giving up and just chalking it and stuff like that is like really kind of sat in
Yeah.
a lot of those teams. That's why that Vegas team last year was cool. Like they did fall flat on their face and they didn't make it, but they had a chance. And they had like a real belief in a chance. And like that's what you have to ask for. So it's like, I think that's a
You don't
really
want to get in
big
the
part of like
cycle,
their
bro.
culture is like we talked about it. I think the first
Yeah.
episode. We want you have to have a good culture, even to be a top 4 team. You have to be like that culture is one of the most important things. So it's like depending on that is also a big reason why that team would make changes and stuff. And obviously no one would probably know that better than their coaching staff and stuff. But I was just curious to see where you were going with that because that was the first thing I heard on the flank when you were talking yesterday. So I really wanted to get an answer out of that because I also didn't hear
It's
the rest of that conversation. I
yeah,
actually
the
turned it
rest of the
off.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just listen, like you don't want to be in a blender of always making changes. We saw how that worked out for Thieves and Cold War. We saw how it's worked out for the London Royal Ravens. Their entire history as a fucking franchise in the CDL. Like if you're making a change every split, like it's no bueno. But
Yeah.
I think another team. The next two teams for me are all like borderline on what they want to do. Carolina was fully uncompetitive this weekend. Now, mind you, they played Toronto and Optic, so like two teams I don't expect them to beat, but at least like show up to those series and take a map. Like I expect them to be competitive, and I think maybe only no, I don't think they were competitive in any of the maps. Actually, I was thinking about it. They had like a good start in Terminal Hardpoint, I think maybe against Boston, if I remember. Or no, sorry, that was Toronto. I'm trying to think. Um, Is Carolina good in any of the maps? Against Toronto? No. And then Optic, I think they got off to a decent start. Yeah, maybe for a second against Optic, but no, they got slammed in all 6 maps they played this weekend. And
They
it's
didn't
like,
win. I would say I don't think the maps that I saw weren't looking very competitive for the most part. Optic was
bro,
setting
it's
records.
the only maps they've won so far have all been in the reverse sweep against Vegas. They got 3-0 by Miami, 3-0 by Toronto, 3-0 by Optic. And you could argue they probably should be 0-4. I don't know how Vegas didn't win that second series. So
You
it's
know,
been
Vegas
a
needs to
really
ice up a little bit more for sure. But I don't know.
It's been a really poor series for Carolina. Like, what do you do if you're in this position as Carolina? They're probably just down fucking bad. Like 0 points. They got Rocker face these and are coming up. Like they got to try and find 2 wins somehow between those 3 to be in winners bracket. Otherwise, they're
I don't know. It's just,
losers.
I mean, clearly they, they can't. I mean, if you come out flat versus Toronto and or Optic, you will lose, plain and simple. Like
Yeah,
that's just you can't do that. Period. And then if Optic comes out hot and you come out hot, in that sense, like it's still kind of tough to beat Optic because they're such a good team, right? And same thing with Toronto. So it's just, it's a rough start for them. I mean, they can definitely turn it around. A big thing for me with them, and what I'm curious with is, I think Clay tweeted something similar to Assault, and Clay is not someone normally to lie about something like this in the sense of like if they were just kind of getting shit on, he'd be pretty like open about it, or pretty
yeah,
angry about it. But he did say like their practice looks a lot better than whatever the hell's going on in their matches. I think his exact tweet was like, I don't know what the hell is happening during these matches, but it's not what I'm seeing during practice. So like there's still hope in that sense of like, maybe they're just not getting it down on game day. They do have some younger players on the team, right? Like Wynn's pretty young, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like
yeah.
he's newer to the league too. But it's just like, I don't know. It's still a small sample size. You get slammed by 2 of the top 4 teams right now. It doesn't mean like you're out of it. It doesn't mean like you just kind of chalk it up. I just think right now they got to try and just tighten up some of their setups and like the spots that they are in for like where they can actually capitalize and take advantage and like get some points back and make the maps a little bit more competitive. I feel like they're not executing in those moments, and that's going to be really important. And that could be a game day thing from Clay's tweet saying like we're way better in practice or something. But I don't know. It's still very hard for me to be as harsh as I'd like to be until like you see a bigger sample size. Because like even like last year when we started off, it's you don't really know because again Clay's tweet can just be bullshit and they can just be getting slammed in scrims too. But like, I don't, Clay's is not someone that seems like he would lie about something like that. Clay's pretty transparent. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah,
They could be playing
he's
better.
transparent. I've always kind of hated the "we're better in practice" excuse because I assume every team has their moments in practice, and then you look at that and you're like, we know we can get to our potential here, but like,
How
then
consistently can you
also
do it?
like, it's like, okay, well, how many, you know what I mean? Like, how consistently you're doing it in practice? Like, is that only just like one set out of the 10 that you play a week? Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of spin going on whenever teams bring that up. And I'm like, not everybody, like,
It
you know what I'm
can be
saying? Every
bullshit.
team,
It
yeah,
definitely can
every
be
team says
bullshit.
they're good in practice, but you know what I mean? Some people have to be losing practice. So I'm saying like
No,
some people are losing maps. Not everybody's
yeah, that's my thing.
that's
It
my
can
issue.
be bullshit for sure. Like, and also people's standards of good in practice. The reason why I'm giving Clay the benefit of the doubt is like he seems like someone that wouldn't like bullshit that as much. Like, I feel like when Clay, Clay's been around for a long time. I've teamed with Clay. Like, if we were getting slammed in scrims, like, of course we're gonna be trying. You have to keep the
Yeah.
confidence that you can like show up on game day and make something happen. But like, you have to be realistic with yourself too. Like, yeah, we need to fucking get better at this shit. Like now, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of it is just also a confidence thing too, and like getting out, like again, when the match starts, doing it when the match starts, and being on the same page and making sure you're doing the right stuff and the teamwork and the setups and all that, and like communication. Like there's so much more that goes into it on match day than practice. So as good as practice is, yeah, like you have to transfer that. Like we even had like issues here and there last year with that stuff for a little bit until we like obviously got it down towards the end of the year in hardpoint. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think they lost pretty badly to the top four teams right now. That's not the end of the world if they can, start playing some more competitive matches and like start winning them and get the confidence there. It's like maybe they can get better and go from there. It's still just
I mean,
very hard to be as harsh as you'd like to be.
it's just bro, any way you slice for them, it's ugly, Chris. Like I'll give you an example. Small sample size.
Mhm.
Played 5 S&Ds. What do you think their first blood win percentage is
If
right now?
while they first
40,
blood,
47 rounds. How many rounds do you think they've got in first blood out of 47 rounds?
um,
And small sample size, but this number is low, Chris.
yeah, I was to say like I mean I would like to say a little less than half, but I don't know.
16 is
Yeah, I was gonna say
34%.
yeah, I was gonna say so
Okay,
yeah, I was giving them a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, but like see
yeah,
this is what we were talking about earlier with Boston. It's like
yeah,
that is a problem. That's a bigger problem than what Boston has. And my like
yeah,
that's like more of like the signs of like, oh, we're becoming a bad search team and we're not putting ourselves even in positions to win the map. And you can change that up and stuff too, for sure. And figure out better ways to get first bloods. But like that is where it's like definitely a little scary for sure. Because a team like Carolina, just like sometimes if you're playing a top four team, even if your slaying power is there and the top four team comes out firing, like you might just be screwed in the sense of slaying power. You still got to be able to
yeah,
sneak out some searches, and you can still make those series work. But like it's gonna be hard. Not being a great search team is the recipe for fail. Like is going to hurt you massively. So like that's something that's definitely need to like a little bit worrisome for sure. But I
yeah.
also feel like
The
Wynn's playing
issue,
pretty good. So it's like
Wynn's playing good, but both their subs are
yeah.
not doing a good job with their first duel win percentage, especially Real. I think let me look up the exact number. Real in 5 maps is 7 for 21 on opening duels. He's gotten first blood 15 times.
Yeah, and it's
Well,
weird
like
because I'm pretty
again,
sure Real has been playing pretty
yeah,
well outside of the matches. Like I'm pretty like you watch him play in eights, I think he does pretty
yeah,
decent. You watch him like
mhm,
again, like in scrims apparently. In scrims he's playing pretty decent. So it's like that's something to look at too, where it's like why like well, I wonder why he can't get that going right now on match day. Like confidence and
yeah,
teamwork and all that stuff. Like Troy Sender, NYSL coach, the coach right there, is in here
yeah,
too. And like he said, like, not even the team is better in practice, but he said and a lot of the big things that players don't keep the consistent play to win mentality because they are scared to scam. Huge problem in younger players, in his opinion. So that's what I mean. It's like Real as well as like if he's not keeping the same mentality or confidence in matches and stuff like that could be a huge issue too, right? Like, and that team does have some younger players or some newer players that they could work on that too. So that's honestly
yeah.
it's that a lot of that's on Clay, to be honest. Like help them out with that too. That's like kind of his job as like that veteran leader too. It could be annoying, but I don't know. They can still definitely turn it around a little bit if the things are not going there, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I know. There's a couple other things, like, I think Godorex did not have a good weekend. Wanna see him pick up the pace a little bit. It seems
Mhm.
like he was playing at times a little bit like scared. He's just giving too much space because he's trying to hold a better like win percentage angle, but he's just giving the other team too much space to operate in by doing so. A couple plays on Skid Row we saw like that. So they've got a lot to figure out there
Yeah.
over the next 3 weeks to try and again. I look at their schedule and I see opportunity for them to find wins against Rocker and Thieves, and then suddenly they have 3 wins. You're 7th or 8th seed going to Major 1, and you're, like, in a better spot, and it seems like now of, like, losers bracket, so we'll see what they, can figure out from there. I think the last team to talk about, and,
Let's do it.
their last just because they've only played 1 series and it was whatever, was the Minnesota Rocker versus Miami. I think the biggest thing for me to talk about Rocker right now is that I thought when they formed this team, I was like, okay, Lamar is going to give you what Lamar gives you, but that he's not on a team to, be the ultimate shoot back. I think which has been good, but again, this is his first run in the CDL. He's got time to figure it out. Wake and Reese have been around for a long time, and I think especially Wake has been pretty poor. He's been pretty slow in hard point. Like, are you concerned that this is sort of a big spot for Reese and Wake and they're not stepping to the moment, or do you think you just need to see a little more before we're having that conversation?
I mean, to keep my answer consistent, as boring as it is, sorry, but like, yeah, like a smaller sample size is harder to be. I don't like taking like super hot takes just for clicks as much as I'd like rather actually see like some of the stuff. But like, I mean, looking at Wake, I think Wake is really talented. I've said this
Yeah.
multiple times, like throughout like my career of just like coaching and just watching him play. Like, I think he's really talented, and I think he's got talent to be like pretty explosive. Uh, I don't know how true this is with him. I don't like. I'm not like I don't really talk to him very much, but I feel like he doesn't always perform as good as he can. Like I feel like he has a higher ceiling than like what people see. I really do. I do think he is better than like what people see a lot of the times. So I think with this Minnesota team, like, yeah, you have Lamar on the team accuracy. He's not there to take over games and win you games and like be like a superstar, like in that sense. He's there to obviously create a system, be a good leader, especially help out like younger players and faster players to be the best players they can be. So like there is a lot of pressure on Wake and Vivid, but like on Awakening on this roster to play good and to like be like kind of that superstar. Like he has to mold himself into that like guy that like kind of takes it over. That could be a confidence thing. That can be like him again, like what Sender said, like not really playing to win in matches as much as like playing not to scam, just because you want to make sure you never make mistakes and stuff. And like that's also a really bad mentality to have, low key. And like there's a lot of things. So it's like, yeah, when you look at this team right now, if you want to make this current team work, Vivid and Awakening are going to have to play good. That is like what this team is built on. This team is built on that for sure. So like, yeah, I would like to see a lot out of him. Or it's not. It's not. I would like to see a lot of him. I think we're going to need to be honest. So I don't know, but I do think. I really do think it's in there. I have a lot of faith in like the amount of talent he possesses. It's just like kind of getting it to wake up and execute on some of the bigger days or like some of the match days and stuff for them. But I do think he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders with this roster. I don't know if you agree,
Yeah.
but
Wake? You saying Wake has a lot of
yeah,
pressure?
yeah, I think he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
100%.
So like with like, and again, that's not an excuse for him. It's more or less like take this to like step up and like prove yourself as like a top player in the league if you can. But like, yeah, I think like again, he has the power to be fast and the talent to be faster and like be like more explosive and stuff. And like, I feel like this roster is going to rely on him to do something like that alongside his subs, of course. Like Vivid is going to have to do something similar as well in that. Like, but like, I just think like if he can be that guy for this team, I think he can turn it around a lot for them, a lot more than you think. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in
I
him.
I think that's spot on, Chris. Like, listen, like I see people come on chat like Big Wake sucks. Like, I don't see the deal. But if you watch these guys POV, like there is talent there.
No, he
Guy's
does.
centering's
I've seen him
unbelievable.
play
Movement is
throughout the
good.
years. He
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
suck.
good.
That
He
like
is he is
that's
good.
not an excuse. Like you can't always just ride on that for the whole entire career of just like,
Oh,
oh, like
that's where I was.
it
That's where I
has
was
to
getting
come
to
out.
though.
It has
It
to come
has to
out.
come out. Yeah.
But like, but
He's
I'm telling you, he doesn't suck.
yeah.
But again, like he does have a lot of pressure on his shoulders now to become that guy. But he has to find the way to do that. And again, I don't know him enough to like really know exactly what it is, but I think there's more there for him than he's performing
Yeah, I
right now.
mean, there are a lot of players in this who used to be in the CDL or CDL who I think are very talented at shooting their gun in map, but the other stuff they were never able to figure out. And like, I don't want to see Wake become one of those guys because I think we saw it when he first came in the league. Like, and say what you want about maybe you think their team was star glitching or sound EQ, whatever the fuck, like punch skill wise, like and movement, like the kid had the package. It's just I think you made a good point. It's about the plays not to win, the plays not to scam. Like there's just they got to figure out how to cut through a lot of the baggage there because they need him on this team to step up. The way this team is built is for him to be the premier slayer as an AR and put up fucking numbers to create space for, I think they've got a really good set of sub players. I like what I've seen from Lins. I like the way that Reese plays and Lamar to kind of do the stuff Lamar does. And they will grind out series because right now it's a disappointment and they have no wins. They're going into 2024 and they have not won a series yet. And I will tell you the remaining schedule here. They have and this is why it's like kind of doable to get some wins, but they have New York, which don't favor them that series. Carolina, that's doable. LAG doable, and then if you can win two of those three, you go in the match against Seattle, potentially in a situation where you can qualify for winners bracket. So it's not over by any stretch, but like they are one of the teams over the next few weeks that's got to put their fucking head down and figure it out and come back a way better version of what they were
Oh no, definitely.
last few weeks.
But yeah, I mean,
They don't.
mentality is a big part of it, man.
Yeah.
It really is more than half the battle. Like, yeah, like it's. I'm not saying it's his weak mental or anything. I don't know what it is, but like that stuff is really important. I really do like what Troy said. Like what I was saying with like the playing not to scam, playing to win, and all that stuff. Like that's that mentality, man, it's so goddamn important. So if it's something that's like that too, like it's definitely worth being looked at and worked on too. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, they definitely need
Bro,
to turn it around for sure and quickly.
like, and I'll say the last thing is like this was the complaint we had about him and the Boston team at the end of last year. Like no one was discounting, and you could probably agree, their ability to shoot back on the map last season. But then you'd play them in hardpoint, and they're
Mm.
just making negative plays to be able to close out those maps, controls
Well,
negative plays to close out those
I
maps.
think some of their philosophies in Hardpoint last year are also weird as fuck. So I also think
Yeah,
that like was just odd. Like some of the way the way they approached like some of the hills to break last year was very like jarring, like confusing. So it's like, but again, like they were doing it as a team, but like I don't think they played like some of the best versions of COD that they could have as well. But again, yeah, no one doubted their ability to shoot back or play well. It's just more
yeah,
or less like again, we always talk about all the talent, and I know like I'm not as harsh on some of it, but you can be as talented as you want, but the best players in the world close out when it matters more than others. Like being a winner and like those bigger moments, like those bigger moments. There's plenty of people that have gotten closer in those bigger moments, and then they fail, and that's the difference maker between your career being like legendary, good, and just okay. Yeah, so it's like there's
yeah,
that is a skill set of its own of like performing in those moments, having that clutch factor and all that stuff, and having that mentality of what like Troy Sender was saying about like that like all that stuff is absolutely a skill set that like really separates a lot of pro players from the next in the sense of that like that's kind of an underrated thing that's not talked about a lot honestly in esports to be honest.
well, we shall see what happens with them when they get back. But that is all 12 teams. Standings are, if you go over the standings page, it's pretty interesting. Just to kind of close out these thoughts. Right now, and what we'll get to our first community question is
Mm.
like, what are the prediction for losers bracket teams? We'll give you the other side that's easy. Teams that are on 3 wins right now that are probably in Optic, New York, FaZe, Miami. 3 and 4 probably get 2 in a minimum. So those three teams are in. Toronto's 2 and 1. You've got to expect they've got at least a third win in the bag with their schedule. So that's five. So you basically have 7 teams fighting for 3 spots. Seattle is 2 and 2. They're in an inside track
I think
to
Seattle's
make it.
good. Yeah.
Seattle's good. So then it comes down to LAG, Boston, Vegas, Thieves, Carolina, and Minnesota for the last 2 remaining spots. LAG is the only team of the sorry, I take that back. LAG and Minnesota are the only 2 teams of the 5 that have only played 3. Everybody else has played 4. So Boston, Vegas, LA Thieves, and Carolina are all 1 and 3. They only have 3 matches left, so best they can finish is 4-3. Theoretically, LAG and Rocker can finish higher. Like, looking at that, I'm just it's a mess right now. I'm thinking
Yeah, who's
it's
your
why I'm, like,
prediction?
high on LAG because I actually think LAG might just, like
Sneak it out.
they might sneak it out and get 3 and then be in, and then, I think we talked about it, like, Vegas' schedule, I think they're automatic loser bracket L. Rocker,
Okay.
to me, is probably an L, and then it's the last 2
Ben
spots.
hates Vegas.
No, but they play. Well,
I
it's
know, I
listen. They
know, I
play.
know.
I'm
I'm
being
just giving you
realistic,
shit.
bro. They play
I'm just
Optic,
giving you shit.
Toronto, and Face. Like, sorry,
No, dude.
it is what it is, bro. No hard
Um,
feelings. Like, yeah,
hmm.
trying to think. Carolina, I would say probably for me, Minnesota, Carolina. I might say the four that are by tiebreakers in the four spots now: Vegas, LA Thieves, Carolina, Minnesota. I think Boston, LAG, Seeking. That's my bet.
Okay, fair enough. I'll go with that. I mean, it's gonna be
It's
just be yeah,
close.
it's gonna be tough. I think like yeah, it's hard for some of those teams to like kind of dig themselves out of a hole. Possible, but obviously tough. So gonna have to wait and see.
Well, at least we have 7 instead of 5, bro. 5 matches.
No, I like the more matches. It's nice to
Oh,
see. It's nice to play more
5
matches and
matches
stuff
was
too.
so bad last year because it would just like it would come down to Saturday and it's just 2-3, 3-2, 5-4 team fucking
Mhm.
tiebreakers. Like now, at least I think theoretically the tiebreaker scenarios, the likelihood of us getting a tiebreaker match is gonna be really tough.
Yeah.
And by the way, they've also changed the rules now, which is nice that you only have tiebreaker matches for first, second, or third, or eighth seed.
Mhm.
Because then you kind of avoid the situation that's happened the last couple of years of
Yeah.
like it's like the Florida Thieves thing. I was like, do we
Yeah.
really want to win this?
Yeah. That
Like,
was weird. That was
yeah,
definitely
we'll
odd.
see what happens. So let's get any questions. That was the first one, the early production of the loser bracket team. So shout out Cody Pearson for that. If you guys have any questions that you want us to
Yeah.
answer, we'll
Drop
take
them
a
in the
couple if you want to
chats.
put them in the chat.
Drop them in
Someone
both
in my chat
chats.
already said Ben is sent back. Like we're done with that
Yeah. We're
question.
that.
Stop.
Yeah.
That's
That question's out the
yeah.
window.
That gringo like don't ever ask that again.
Yeah. That
Uh
was that Gringo. Yeah. Of course.
yeah.
All right. We have another question though from Andrew Larson, and it
Yeah.
is: if Rocker has a bum season, do you think the G2 merger was a good or a bad thing? Uh I mean, I I, I don't see like I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Am I faded? Like I feel like that's not a big deal. Like
I think the merger is fine.
yeah,
G2 has wanted to get in the COD for a long time.
yeah, they have.
Um, they've never been able to get a good team. Um, I would say that this team is also probably not in that category, but they do have the ability to spend. If you've seen in CS and other games
Mhm.
are in, like they spend coin. The Wolf family is going to back them because talking to their ownership group and people over there on the record, off the record, like the esports winner thing is not a problem to them. They've got a lot of money. They own an NFL franchise. They see the side of esports. Like they want to get in the mix.
Yeah,
They want to be a little more passive now. They want to be in the mix. So I personally think, regardless of what the fuck happens with this, like I think it's fine. There's just obviously other pieces in play. Someone in the chat made a good point where I was going with this. Like they obviously have a really good, pretty solid Rocket League team too. The G2 probably wanted to get in the mix. So like I think it's irrelevant whether or not they suck or not. Like I think G2. Listen, if we transition away from city-based franchising, like they're always going to be able to theoretically field the competitive team. The problem is always in COD is this, dude. Phase as long as Phase Optic are around, they're getting the pick of the litter as far as players, and everybody else is just fighting for what's left. This is what it is.
I mean,
But
LA Thieves had a really good roster last year,
yeah.
and New York and did
Uh,
New York die?
well, yeah, okay. So I'm saying this in a macro, like assuming that everybody was free agents and people were just having to choose between options. FaZe and Optic are always going to be at the top of that. Thieves usually are also a good shout, but it seems like investment and spend and salary, maybe they're not going to be as competitive.
I think a lot of players care about
Toronto has
salaries
a
and
wild
spending
card and
now.
New York's a
Yeah,
wild card.
I was gonna say like
Yeah,
Toronto
because New
because
York,
it depends on how much you spend. Because if you spend a good amount of money, like too, like I would say a
yeah,
lot of players want to like they want to play for a big brand. I understand where you're going with what you just said, but like
yeah,
at the same
they want
time,
the
like you could
cash.
say yeah, like Toronto,
Yeah.
New York, like Thieves. Well, LA Thieves is a big brand too, but you say like even like their New York and Toronto have built their brands now. Like my point is like yeah, you can still field a really good team. That was kind of crazy. Like, but
Nah, listen, I don't
I
think it's
know
a
what
crazy
you're,
take.
but
What Toronto's done is after year one built a very good core of a team to be able to recruit people.
no, they
Like the
didn't.
Envoy get, like that was really smart. New York's gotten that, but like as someone put in my chat, like New York, let's not act like, you know, it's been some up and downs free agency for New York.
But that's how it's gonna
And
go with
there is
almost any team.
they have this team because Optic fumbled the fucking bag last offseason.
Oh, with Hydra, the Hydra
Well,
thing.
Hydra was on Optic, and they let that slip through their fingers, like,
Mhm.
of Optic's volition, not of New York controlling that
Yeah.
situation. So, like,
No, yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that, but I'm saying like my point is like yeah, you can still field a good team, but I know what you mean with the branding and stuff. Like I
It's
get
just
where
at
you're
the end of the
going,
day, if you're gonna ask a
but
player, it's like if everybody's offering the same cash and Phase and Optic are there,
no, I know what you mean. Yeah, but
so
I just didn't want to be disrespectful to some of the other teams that
no,
look
it's
pretty good.
100%.
But
Uh-huh.
to go back to the question, like I don't also think like you just join like G2 doesn't just join the league and just create a dominant squad. Like I feel like any franchise and or like team building thing, like even like what you said with New York, like it's very hard to just join and make a really, really good team and just like from the start. Obviously, especially now that teams have been solidified and they have their teams throughout the years and stuff. Like, yeah, I don't think G2 has a bad say. Like, hypothetically, Rocker bums out this season, they do really bad. Like, I don't think it's terrible. It's like you just gotta kind of find the people that you want to build around and go from there. And like, it's more of a long term thing. You don't unless like you're spending just $1 billion like before the season starts and you start poaching players for crazy salaries. Like, it's going to have growing pains. I think that's a part of it. And I think the things that separate organizations from that is just like, how are you going to build that team to last long term and like, things like that, make the right decisions during free agency of like, who do we pick up? Like picking up the right talent and stuff is also a skill set. Like, like all that stuff is really, really important. So I think G2, yeah, the merger is not like a terrible thing. I don't know. Even if they don't have the best season and they can still obviously turn it around.
Yep. If anyone else, I'm trying to think of my chat if there's any good
Yeah,
questions.
you can
Here's a
say
good one. Here's a
well,
good one. Confession on from many men. When people say scrims are different than matches, what is exactly different? Do you want to get to that one, Chris?
scrims and different matches is well, of course. First of all, I'll say this: I think scrims, you play scrims, and I'll go back to the Troy comment here in a second if I can go up and scroll and find it. But scrims, there's no pressure. No one's watching other than the 12 people or whatever that are in the lobby, right? Like it's just you playing. The environment's less stressful most of the time. Sometimes some cultures are pretty fucking terrible, but like there's no pressure. You're practicing. You're not scared to make a mistake because if you make a mistake, what do you say? Oh, I was just trying it. It's just a scrim. You know what I mean? Like you're playing with a lot more freedom, right?
Yeah.
Like so that's one thing. Second of all, there are players that show up to match days and they want to have a 1 point something KD instead of winning. Like not saying that they say that out loud purposely, but like people slow. Like there are players that get to matches, they slow down and it's like that could be like again if they're not that slow in matches, but then all of a sudden like everybody in scrims and all of a sudden they're slowing down in matches, like that could be a very big thing because again you have an entire community now that sees like oh you had a 0.9 you suck. That is 100% a angle that you can look at it from there. So people do change their play styles, and then like what Troy said, dude, like teamwork, confidence, and just being in any big moment with 50 to 80 to 30 to 100 to whatever thousand viewers that are watching you, like being a performer on the stage with the crowd and all that stuff too is huge. And like if you go up there and you play not to win, like the mentality aspect of it, like sports psychology and the mental psychology of anything in competition, honestly, but especially in esports, like is a skill set that needs to be worked on. Not by everybody. Some people kind of just have a really good mentality, and some people absolutely need to work on it to
Yep.
become a better player in those bigger moments and perform under pressure more. So it's like that scrims to matches thing is a lot of that. And then sometimes too, it's just also, you have in scrims where like people are trying to get on the same philosophies. Like we had some mishaps last year of like this is how you play hardpoint, and then like you're trying it and it's working. But like if someone doesn't truly believe in the system, like when I the best way for me to explain is like when you are in those big moments, those clutch moments, and it's like you don't believe in the system of rotating at 30 seconds hypothetically. I don't know. Just give like a very
Yeah.
basic example. In that clutch moment, if you don't fully believe in what your team believes in, you're probably going to do what your instincts tell you to do. And that's going to kick in and say, instead of at rotating at this time, you make a pinch play this time. And
Yeah.
you probably in scrims are going to try out the philosophy that everyone's preaching you to do. But then in match day, your instinct takes over and you don't do exactly what you're supposed to do, or you don't take that challenge, or you don't make that pinch, or whatever it is. And that causes you to get broken. You lose 60 seconds and then everything spirals, right? So like, it's not always a mentality thing as much as sometimes it's to getting teams to actually fully believe in the system that you're trying to play and make the right plays, because that's a big thing too. Instincts take over in those big moments. Like when it's 220 to 220, bro, and you are in the mix,
One
in
decision
the
made
zone,
one
one
decision away from
decision.
losing or winning. Yeah.
Everything that goes through your brain at that moment, you don't have time to analyze like, oh, well, this happened and this happened and that happened. Like your instincts kick in. So like all that practice and all that stuff that you've talked to, the VODs you've watched and everything, it all kicks in at that very moment for you to make that decision and make the correct decision, the one that would also put you in the best spot to win. And like that's where like your instincts come in. So like you have to become a team that is so much of like a cohesive unit that it all makes sense for you guys too. So that's like, again, a huge also thing that matters. Like to give an example from our team, like just like we were never fully on that same page of control last year, and it hurt us.
Yeah.
And like again, that is a problem. That's like one of the hardest things to do, coaching wise, even as a player. When I was like a player at the time, like to get all 4 people to do it, like it's a task and it takes a lot. So like I would say that's probably the biggest thing for me from scrims and matches. Is that I feel like a lot of people that play or coach in the moment would probably agree for the most part. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. So I'm glad that you went off a bit there, Crowder Coach. I think this is a good show. We got a lot through. Talked about a lot. Are we? How do we want to handle the next 3 weeks? Because
Wait. Um.
go ahead.
Never mind.
All right.
I just
How do you want to handle
I just realized like you're on Twitch. I was gonna say because I had the whole like Twitch thing with plays and stuff, but then I just realized you're on Twitch and we're reviewing
No,
gameplay, so we're
we're
fine.
we're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to speak on that real quick.
Yeah, I feel like we
I don't
didn't
think we
talk about that much, and it just
Here,
just
I
like,
can
but
I
then
can finish the show and talk
yeah,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
We had a really good conversation with Activision early last week. Tom and I hopped on, and one of the things that they apologized to us about was in previous communication that if we were on Twitch and watching highlights, that would be in violation of their contract, the Activision contract with YouTube. And then they said actually, we dive in on it, and there's not an issue there. So I'm not sure if that was one of those like maybe an Activision lawyer kind of made a mistake, or them and YouTube put their heads together and like, we should be supporting community shows. We should be supporting pros. One thing that not even be on the shows. I'll give an example. I had pros DM me this weekend. It's like, hey, I want to go back and watch my matches on stream on Twitch. Like, can I do that? And I was like, yeah. And I think that was something they would have thought about too. It's just like, well, now we're not even letting our athletes create. We complained that our pros don't stream. Well, now we're giving them something that they can't fucking stream now of a very limited set that they already have. So I think everybody put their heads together and decided to do differently. Obviously, there's still a bunch of edge issues that we need to figure out. I think the big thing right now, just to be transparent, we're trying to figure out what Activision is. With the world now that we all have to, when we go to events, everything's kind of be on YouTube. There's a revenue loss kind of issue that everybody involved has to figure out. So Activision's very open to conversation. We're actively talking about how to overcome that issue. And so I'm hoping we get a solution on that before everybody leaves for the holiday this week. And that way, going into January, we can, full speed plan to be at Boston. I've already we've already got stuff lined up, especially around the flank for around Boston. So I'm hoping we were able to go. But I think people have cooled down and we're at a point where
Yeah, I feel like
people are
I feel like it
chilling.
was getting kind of hot. It's getting hot for a second over there, dude. With everything
Yeah.
going on, especially the whole scump thing too. But so the last thing I'm going to ask, and the only reason why I'm asking this is because I actually am not obviously on this side of things
Yeah.
as much as you are. You're not allowed to stream on Twitch at all, even if it's full cam and stuff.
So the rule is that if you're in if you were in the watch party program, right? You're watching.
So you have to sign a watch party
matches on-
program thing. Is that a thing?
No, it's
No?
it's even
What?
more of a legal trap than that. By streaming a match, from my understanding, from streaming matches on YouTube, if you're watching matches on YouTube, you are there agreeing to their
Automatically
YouTube
agreeing.
watch party guidelines. Now, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that's going to actually hold up in court. But obviously, you have to get to a point where you'll be able to litigate, and it's cost and whatever. Maybe it's just a fucking legal trap. But basically, if you were on YouTube, then you agree to that terms, and then those terms say that you can't multi-stream and be on Twitch
At all.
on full cam. And I think that's where, like, say, this weekend with Scump,
That was the whole thing with
on
Scump.
Friday, they were live on YouTube with sort of their full experience, and on Twitch it was just full cam, no audio, just full cam, and their YouTube stream got shut down.
Yeah, and my
And
confusion
then the Twitch
was
stream, yeah,
that but if it's full screen, no audio, no CDL on Twitch, like how can you take that down if it has like almost nothing to
Well, so
do?
they didn't take the Twitch never got taken down.
Oh,
That's, I think, a
I mean,
misconception of what happened.
I was
Yeah,
I mean, I was to be honest, yeah, I was not obviously as
yeah.
in that because we were doing our matches and shit. But so yeah, but if you do stream, if so basically you agree to if you stream on YouTube or whatever you're doing the watch party stuff, you're kind of like automatically agreeing that you can't multi-stream at the time. It's like kind of like
Cor correct, yeah. So you
even
get
if
in a
even if your
position.
multi-stream has nothing to do with Call of Duty.
Yeah,
Because
you
like
basically get.
hypothetically, Scump had nothing to do with COD, like in the sense he was full screen
Yeah.
camera. Okay, I just
Y
didn't know how that worked. So that's like why that all went haywire, and then everything went fucking nuts from there.
Yeah, basically, like, their YouTube stream got shut down, and then they were like, "Well, fuck, we'll just shut down,"
Well, I just
shut
didn't
down
know
the
how
Twitch
that
stream
worked
and figure it out.
because my confusion of it when everything happened was like, how can they hold the rights of someone multi-streaming if like the Twitch stream wasn't technically broadcast? But I
Yeah,
guess if you're
that's
agreeing to terms or some shit when you go live on YouTube, I
I
don't know. I was confused.
here's the thing is, like, the question of whether or not this would actually uphold in court is definitely a question. The problem is
Hold in the
like
court. Holy shit.
no, but, like, because that's the only way you
I know.
you get a remedy on that answer that question, like,
Yeah, no, I
the
just
problem is at that point, like, it's a lawsuit, they're going to fight it, they're gonna have a million motions before you even get to depositions, and then, like, if you get a judgment, is a trial, like, you're literally, like, at that point, 3 years in, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a
yeah, yeah,
civil
yeah.
case, it's not gonna move. It's a civil case, and it doesn't involve, like, the
Yeah,
president or something
it
that's
will
gonna
move
make it
slow.
speed up. It's gonna move fucking slow, it's gonna cost a lot of money. So that's, like, these traps, it's like, they can have policy that's borderline, but it's like you're never actually gonna be able to sort of solve whether or not it's doable. So I don't know. It's just
I
this
know. I was
this whole
just I was
thing.
honestly just genuinely curious because yeah, that was confusing. I guess that at the same
I
time
I do think
clears some
though.
stuff up a
I
lot.
do think someone eventually, because this is a greater application of a lot of people on the internet, myself included. Sometimes you probably do it too. You sit there and you watch YouTube content or Twitch content. You know what I mean? Let's say you're eating lunch or whatever, and you can't hold your controller. You're watching people that sit there and they react to content. These type of policies and guidelines do kind of get into that industry. And I do think at some point, someone with a lot of money, a big streamer or an agency that represents a big streamer is going to challenge sort of the fair use sort of kind of thought process around a lot of this reaction content. I do think eventually it will go to the Supreme Court and we'll get a real ruling on whether or not, like, publishers and the platforms can really claim exclusivity on certain content pieces. I don't know
Interesting.
when that will happen. I don't know how long it will take, but I do think between this and, like, the XQC drama from a while back, like,
I
there's
remember
enough
that, yeah.
space here that someone's going to try and get or remedy or clarity around, like, what's actually enforceable and legal in
Yeah,
this
no.
space.
The whole thing is just yeah, it was definitely a little confusing, but I guess that clears some of it up. But I mean, at the end
Not
of
to
the
bore
day,
the
listen,
fuck out of
I hope
people.
I hope you guys and everyone else that's doing watch parties in the sense like find a way to go to the events and you figure that out because obviously I just want the community to be fucking stoked and I think you having you guys at events and stuff is really dope. So hopefully you guys figure that shit out. Um,
I do too.
but yeah, dude. With that being said, I think that's it, right? That's a wrap on the episode. We get 2 hours and
Yeah.
11 minutes. Not bad.
Yep.
I'll take the outro. You did such a great intro with the music. But
Appreciate it.
yeah, everyone watching on YouTube. We had a bunch of people in here hanging out, watching. I appreciate you guys. Everyone watching on Ben's Twitch stream as well. We appreciate you guys. We was joined here by my co-host Ben Nassim, the GOAT himself, talking about all things of the last CDL weekend. I don't think we are going to see you guys until maybe not next Monday because next Monday is Christmas. I don't know if we're doing an episode next week. We'll kind of see. Maybe like later in the week we'll talk about it, Ben. But
Yeah.
yeah, the next time we see you guys on this podcast, I hope you guys have a great holiday if you're celebrating everything. And of course, thank you guys for watching. This will be up on all platforms here shortly. And yeah, dude, I'm excited to keep doing these episodes, dude. This is now probably going to be a weekly thing as much as we can to just keep talking to you guys about stuff. You guys are super positive vibes today. Fire show. I think it was a fire show all around. And thanks for watching. We will see you guys all next one. Peace out.
Peace.